So what we want to do is cultivate a capacity for kindness. So, close your eyes. Take a few moments to breathe in and breathe out. So what we want to do is cultivate a capacity for kindness. So, close your eyes. Take a few moments to breathe in and breathe out. Testing. One, two, three.
Hey!
Can you all hear us okay, chat? Okay. Welcome to another Healthy Gamer GG stream. My name is Alok Kanoja. This is my awesome wife,
I'm
Kruti.
Kruti.
Just a reminder that everything we discuss on stream today is intended to be for educational purposes only, and nothing is intended to be taken as medical advice. So if y'all have any medical concerns or questions, please go see a licensed professional. Couple of things in terms of announcements. So first thing that we want to do is shout out our music creators.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of awesome creators on in our community. And so Bruno Giroldi, I don't know how to pronounce that.
Let's go with Giroldi.
Duck Duck Goose, Snuggle Bear, Skyle, and Rorik are, if y'all were enjoying the jams that were, in our starting soon screen, y'all can thank them. So it's really awesome that, people can create things on the internet and share them and we can all enjoy them. And that's really fantastic. And we're really, really grateful to our awesome music creators.
Is it awesome?
It is.
It is.
It's hype.
It's hype.
So today we've got something a little bit different, which we do occasionally. We usually do this during Valentine's Day, but I think that we've been seeing a lot more, interest in kind of relationships and stuff like that. I think as people are learning to be better communicators, as people are, developing some amount of confidence and moving out into the world, what we find ourselves in is relationships. And so today what we're going to do is we're going to have viewers kind of calling in and we'll just sort of be offering whatever our thoughts are about, whatever relationship advice we can provide.
This is the first time we've done a call-in, right? No, we did one a couple years ago.
Yeah, I know sometimes we'll have like preset posts and stuff,
Right.
But I think this way, it'll be a little bit more back and forth. So relationship girls, relationship Andes, and someone's asking, fear of an orca planet is asking, where am girls located? Okay, well,
We'll tell you. We'll tell you. We got all the answers over here.
Yeah, I don't really know about that. So we're getting a call-in stream. So I think let's go ahead and get started.
Did you talk about Mental Health May?
No, I think we usually talk about it at the end.
Okay. Well,
you can talk about it now.
I see a lot of first-time chatters, so welcome everyone. And this is part of our Mental Health May kind of lineup. May is our big month where we really get to have a lot of fun and celebrate all of the cool stuff, not just about Healthy Gamer, but about the community. So the musicians, the progress that everybody is making on mental health and in life in general. So we're really excited.
Yeah. So, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So hopefully y'all are aware of your mental health. I think I really do believe that a lot of this stuff is solvable. I know a lot of people out there are like pretty hopeless and feel like they're stuck and stuff like that. But I think a lot of times when people feel stuck, what you really have to consider is, I almost think about, having a spotter at the gym where even if you feel super stuck in life, like remember that you're sort of holding steady with all of your effort. And it actually takes very little to start to get like some upward acceleration. If you're kind of like on that last rep of bench pressing and you're kind of stuck and you can't push the bar up, really all you need from a spotter is like one or two fingers, and then they'll a tiny amount of effort will sort of help you get to your goal. And that's what we tend to see, is that like sometimes all we need is like a single break, and then all the effort we're putting in, all the endurance we have starts to really come to fruition. And then you'll sort of see this like upward spiral as opposed to a downward spiral. So.
Cool.
Yes. I just realized I said one or two fingers.
Mm-hmm, you did.
It's a good analogy, though.
It's not.
It's a good analogy.
This was not my favorite analogy, I will say.
But it's so apt, because all you need is a little bit of help. But anyway, we can get started.
Okay. For people wanting to know how to call in, we're, I think, taking calls from the Discord, right?
Yeah, I think it's from Discord.
Okay.
And thanks for the Prime sub. Flying's fine. Mike is quiet.
Hello?
Hello.
Hi. Thanks so much for taking my call. Hi. All right. Here's my question. I'll just give some information quick, and then you can feel free to ask questions or whatever whatever. So basically, I'm an autistic person. I'm a non-traditional student at a not Ivy, but pretty up there school, university. So I'm 26. I'm at a university. I've always struggled to make friends because I have audio processing disorder. So it's really hard to like meet people at like, meetups or like, mingling events because there's always so many conversations going on. And like, even when it's overwhelming to figure out like, who to approach, what do I talk to them about. I was at a big meet, like a big gathering of people, and like last weekend, and I just like I tried saying hi to some people, I tried complimenting them on their posters and stuff, but like I didn't know like what to talk about them. I didn't know what to talk to them about after that. Like I just really struggle to connect with people because of I guess like the difference in I guess perspective because of autism, and also like past trauma making it hard for me to connect with people like past some scar. I finally think I found a therapist to help me with that, hopefully. But
Strong
yeah, I
work.
was just hoping for some advice, so feel free to ask questions.
I have kind of, first of all, it's really nice to meet you, and thanks for
You too.
joining us. And you sound lovely, so I'm really glad that we get to kind of connect in this
Thank
way.
you.
Um, can you tell me a little bit more about the audio processing thing? Does that mean that, like, tell me, I guess, help me understand the way it kind of holds you back, or maybe help like hinders communication for you?
Yeah, I'm happy to. Thank you for asking. I also have like hearing loss. Like my right ear is completely dead. And my left ear is like at 70% of its functionality. But like the way that it works is that basically how people with how people who need glasses, when they take their glasses off, they often have blurry vision. Audio processing disorder makes my ears like that. It's like the audio is there, but it's all very jumbled up. So like when I'm in a place when there's multiple conversations going on, it's really hard to separate those conversations and go like, yo, like be able to like participate in one conversation because they're all just kind of like blending together basically. Yeah.
Um, okay, I've got a couple of ideas,
Go
mainly
for it.
because I feel like I can. I know it's not the same, but I have. I think in my family we're kind of all a little hard of hearing, and I remember in business school when um, I was in like these like mixers and stuff like that. Like I could barely hear anyone as it is. So I feel like even baseline, having a single conversation in
Yeah.
a really crowded environment is not easy. So if I feel like there's two ways we could go. One is like how to make that situation maybe simpler, and the other way is maybe how to have and meet people outside of those situations where you don't have kind of those same hurdles in that way. Because I think it is going to be really difficult in those kind of crowded environments. What do you think, Alok?
Yeah, I mean that was going to be my question. Is what are your interactions like in? So you said you're a student, right? So like in
Yeah.
smaller settings like classrooms or study groups or other kinds of settings. You mentioned poster presentation, so I'm assuming it was some kind of conference. But
No, it was a protest. Like, yeah, I didn't wasn't sure if I should mention that. But yeah.
that's
That's okay.
totally fine. I mean, but so what are your interactions like in smaller settings with, let's say, like less than 5 people?
Yeah, when it's like, like however big the group is, if it's just like one conversation and people are just going back and forth, or, kind of like people are taking turns talking, that's totally fine. Like I totally do well in that. And like, I mean, sometimes because I also have ADHD, I do that thing where like I'll zone out because people are talking about like wrestling or something and I'm not interested. But like but when they are talking about something I know something about or am interested in talking about, then I will be able to, talk. So yeah, like that's totally good. That's totally fine.
Yeah, so I mean, it sounds like you're able to have conversations. Or are you able to form good relationships in small settings?
Um, like the strongest relationships I have were with like online friends, primarily. Like one, my best friend was a friend that made online, and we've only met like over a weekend at an anime convention. But and like even in those, like as far as like IRL goes, I can't. I struggle to get that close with people. Because like it's really hard for me, very long story short, it's really hard for me to open up in that direction, like open up that much, like be that vulnerable, because like it's hard to find the words in the moment to like be super vulnerable, or just like I don't know how to like progress relationships, from small talk banter to, deeper friendships and that kind of thing.
Well, it sounds like you do it online. So
Yeah.
what is different about IRL versus online?
I guess like because like online, I guess the topics just come up, cuz like the way that those conversations have happened is just like I don't know, uh like I guess um I guess like people, see me, I don't know, like I it's it's hard to tell. Like I have
So
all these different possibilities like popping in my head, and it's like um but basically, I mean, like those deeper conversations don't really come up, I guess, because of like societal, like it's, too much to like talk about those mental health things, and like people would rather do it in private, when when they trust the people they know, whereas like online it's easier because you're anonymous. That's my theory. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
so let's like dig into that a little bit, right? So if we look at online interactions, we can all, I think, safely assume, or maybe that it's not fair, but a lot, we can certainly say that a lot of people feel more comfortable online, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but the issue there is that if we're talking about the difficulty of IRL interactions versus online interactions, the question that I'd really pose to you is what's different in the other person, or is the difference in you? Is it a matter of your own comfort with being online and feeling safer, right? So like if you kind of screw up with someone online, like it's very easy to set boundaries with them. You never have to see them again. Like you can block them if you want to. Whereas in IRL interactions, like let's say like with a student in your class, like you have to see them again, right? So my first question would be, do you think what's different is internal, or do you think it's a function of how people behave?
It's definitely a me thing, because like with like I didn't know I was autistic till I was 26. So like till this year. So like so I've had to operate in like a weird like masking way my whole life. So like definitely I've had to like think strategically about like what I tell people and what I don't tell people. So it's definitely a me thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so the good news is that makes me optimistic, because if it's a not you thing, then you have no control over it, right?
Right.
So if it is a you thing, then there is some way that you can learn, hopefully, to navigate this. Now, in terms of like the
Mhm.
audio processing stuff, I don't know how much you can do about that. So I think like
Yeah.
from that perspective, I'd say just focus on smaller interactions and
Right.
recognize that each and every one of us is born with some things that make life easy and some things
Yeah.
that make life hard. And
Right.
sort of building a successful and fulfilling life is all about understanding what your strengths are and understanding what your weaknesses are and crafting a life that is sort of like in tune with those. Now the
Definitely makes sense. Yeah.
yeah, and the second thing I'll let Kruti kind of finish up, but the second thing that I'd say is I'd pay attention to your own internal state when you're talking about people, talking with people online versus talking with people IRL. And what I'd
Mm.
imagine is, it sounds like you're actually pretty good at making like small talk in the initial interactions. It's just hard to form deeper relationships. So
Right.
somewhere
Yeah.
along the way in the IRL interaction, something is going to like fork off this way where you start to feel
Yeah.
more uncomfortable, or you may start second guessing yourself. Something is holding you back from being the person that you are online. And my
Yeah.
sense is that the more that you kind of compare and contrast your online interactions versus IRL interactions, and then it also sounds like you're very good at like sort of experimenting and figuring out how to navigate social interactions just by virtue of like, masking, right? So you're like able to sort of read into situations and then like oddly enough almost behave inauthentically. But if you have that
Right.
degree of control and understanding, what you can actually do is like start to experiment a little bit and take whatever that online self is that you show to people and start to show it a little bit to, IRL interactions and sort of like see how that goes.
I've actually kind of used that strategy to like help me kind of figure out, what is small talk with people about. So like actually using that, comparing the how I feel online to, how I feel IRL is definitely a great next step. So thank you so much for that. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for all you do. Thank
Yeah,
you.
of course. I think Kruti may have had something else for you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sorry.
Well, I was going to ask because you mentioned you're 26. Are you in an undergrad program or a grad program?
Undergrad, not I long, sad story, but yeah, basically I'm undergrad.
Are between like 19 and 22, it sounds like.
Yeah, that's part of the struggle.
Got it. And if you're at a large enough university, I would, I think there's going to be a lot more understanding with grad students than with undergrad students. So I would
Yeah,
seek out associations and clubs and things like that with where there's maybe a little bit people that are kind of more in their mid 20s, because at that point you can kind of be very straightforward and be like, sorry, I have a little trouble hearing. Do you mind saying that again? And like just being a little bit more upfront with whatever is kind of going on with you. And I've found that people kind of in that age group are really like very understanding and accommodating. They're there to make friends too. So I would try to kind of get into a peer group that's maybe more in your age range and more kind of mature in a way where, because, undergrad friendships are very different than mid 20 friendships. So I
yeah.
would really recommend seeking out group settings that put you in that kind of age category.
Yeah, I actually live I kind of, yeah, figured that out. Like I got to live in in a graduate what they call a co-op, so like a house full of like people my age, and it's definitely been easier to form friendships with them. Yeah, so that definitely helped. um but I still have to, where appropriate, be able to form deeper connections, but I might have to step out of the house to, do that. But
Yeah.
yeah, like definitely, I'm, trying to find groups like that. Yeah, but I'll keep trying. Thanks so much, Kruti. Yeah,
Yeah. Thank you so much
You're the
for
best.
calling in.
I feel
And
like
thank
I would
you.
want to be friends with you. So I'm optimistic for you, like Alex said.
Thank you. You
Yeah.
too.
All right. Have a good one.
You too. Bye.
Bueller?
Bueller.
Bueller? I don't know. Let's see what's going on.
I remember
Oh, it
trying
looks
to
like
make
there's someone
friends
else in
at
the
that
channel.
age, and it's difficult because it takes time, and until you're friends like that, like kind of slow roll into actually being friends can be kind of awkward.
I think the hardest thing is no one ever teaches you how to make friends, right? So we
Right.
just kind of learn,
Go to the playground,
and
just make it happen.
some
Yeah.
of us don't.
Yeah.
And so like I remember finding myself in my kind of in college and like not really knowing how to make friends.
Your friends were mostly because of your student groups and like frat and social stuff, right?
Yeah, but that was after I learned. So like you weren't around when I was like a freshman, which was rough times, let me tell you what.
But your friends now to this day are more friends that you gamed with and like went out to eat with and like had those kinds of things in common, right?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my friends are actually like from high school or older,
Yeah.
people that I grew up with. But I think we've got someone else
Yep.
or not.
Or,
Hello.
or I am here. I
Awesome.
didn't know when to
Oh,
say something.
sorry.
Dive right in, my friend.
Okay. Hi, longtime viewer, first time caller. Um, I coincidentally, I'm also autistic. Uh, so I guess I'll just say my question, then explain. Um, so my question is how do I effectively communicate my mental health needs to my parents, and also consider like their wants with my wants as well.
Great
So
question.
I okay, so for context, I recently took a medical withdrawal from my college because I guess my depression was becoming like like overwhelming. I I go to an art college, and like my depression was tied up with with my quality of art. So if my quality of art is bad, then my outlook of myself is bad. So it's been like several months now. I honestly like found Healthy Gamer, which has been pretty helpful for me. But I I wanted to keep my parents out of like my mental health process because well, I didn't know it at the time, but I think I felt like frustration with my parents. Uh like in some ways, like I was creating like counterfactual information. I think I used that correctly. That like if my parents like caught like my autism, or if they knew like what was going on with me, then maybe I would have been okay. But um so I didn't want them the in my process. But then I guess I I somewhat began like kind of trying to communicate with them that like my needs somewhat, but I've kind of ugh sorry, it it takes me a while
You're
to like
doing great. You're
uh
doing great.
put thank you. It takes me a while to put like thoughts into words. So, but I um I guess I've had like a lot of conversations with my parents, and I guess a lot of them have been accusatory. Um, I guess particular with my mom because she's more vocal than my dad, so there's more things for me to attach to. And
Accusatory is, sorry to interrupt, but accusatory in terms of she's accusing you or you're accusing her.
I guess I'm accusing her of
Okay.
of my initial thesis was that they didn't understand mental health because I guess in the mind of like, or in my mind, the equation of like, if I'm not well and they are my caretakers, then it's their responsibility for what is happening to me. But
Okay.
I but ultimately there's more nuance to that than that. So I've had a lot of conversations, and I end up making my mom cry. It was not until recently that I discovered that I've been activating, or no, I've been triggering like traumas from my mom.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently she's had like a lot of experience with like with one set of my grandparents like over criticizing my mom, and that's what um makes well yeah it I can't quite like communicate what I want to say because like I'm too blunt and my mom has a hard time receiving it because of the trauma. And now we're kind of at a turning point, I guess, because I'm trying to, or I explained to her that like the way I like to express my thoughts is like kind of presenting my thing as like like presenting an object and having her look at it and not necessarily like, huh, well, sorry.
That's okay. Do you? I'm just wondering, Kruti, do you have any initial thoughts? Because you've shared a lot of good information,
Yeah.
so I don't want to
Okay.
lose track of some of the things that you've said.
Would it help to kind of quickly summarize for him just what you heard, so that way we can make sure that we're all on the same understanding level?
Okay.
Yeah, sure. Do you want me to just summarize what he said, or do you want me to offer
Yes,
insight at the same time?
you can do both.
Let me just summarize. So,
Okay.
first of all, it sounds like you were diagnosed with autism. It sounds like the diagnosis was missed for a long time. It sounds like, as a consequence, you sort of like blame your parents and you're trying to figure out how to communicate your mental health needs to your parents. And when you have a conversation with them, you tend to slip into this communication dynamic that seems to trigger some past trauma from your mom and the way that her parents dealt with her, and the conversations are not very productive. Furthermore, you're an artist, and your mental health is heavily influenced by the quality of your art.
Yeah. Um, Technically, I haven't been like officially diagnosed. Um, like apparently, like my mom like took me to a lot of like I guess specialists, and they said that like I was close to autism, but not quite. But I I felt like that I found the diagnosis on accident, uh,
Sure.
more or less. And it's like my dad's parents with my mom. But yeah, that
Okay.
sounds about right.
In-laws.
Sorry if it was like a kind
No,
of big info dump.
I immediately knew
All
the in-laws. It's the in-laws.
right, Kruti, do you have thoughts?
Well, it's I feel for your mom, but I care more about you since you're the one that's here right now. So I really feel like you finding out what you need to do first is okay. I feel like parents respond the best when there's a plan and you're asking for like, can you do this to support me? So if conversations can be more forward looking and more, here's what I want to do and here's what I need from you, and is there anything you need from me to make this work, that kind of a dynamic is more likely to be productive. Of course, the big challenge there is figuring out what you want to do first, and that's where maybe Alo can offer more insight.
So more plan oriented conversations.
That would be my advice, not knowing only what you've shared with me, but like
Yeah.
emotions of like why and how we got here, and well, this is why we're in the situation we're in, like those types of conversations almost always go back into these like kind of broken communication dynamics. So the more you can kind of get into like okay, here's what I want to do this semester, here's what I want to do over the summer, here's what I want to do next semester. My first step is to do this. I need you to help me understand what our insurance looks like, things like that, like where it's like, this is the task I need from you. And I feel like once you start making momentum towards a plan, you're in it together and there's less blame back and forth. Like this is anecdotal from like just my experiences like working through stuff with my parents and all my sisters and extended family who've, we've had kind of mental health stuff in our family as well. I think every family does. So this is kind of, I would say, a more amateur opinion.
So just kind of piggybacking off of that, I think there's a couple things going on. The first is, in order for you to communicate your mental health needs, you have to know what your mental health needs are. Do you have a good sense of what your mental health needs are?
Um, I was a bit. I think I'm learning more about my needs every day,
Sure.
but
So I
uh,
didn't I meant that sort of like, because there's a lot of people who are listening, and I think a lot of the challenge in communicating what our needs are is that oftentimes we are alexithymic, or we don't know internally what we're feeling, and we don't really know. All we kind of know is, like, in a rough sense, we need help. But if we don't really
right.
know exactly what we're feeling or what we're asking for from people, it can be hard for people to help us. So if you do know what your needs are, that's fantastic. So that's kind of
Right.
step number one. The second thing that I'm kind of noticing is that it seems like conversations about your needs going forward and conversations about your needs in the past that were not met get jumbled together when you try to communicate. So what I'm sort of
Yeah.
hearing is that if you were to try to have, you may have the intention of saying, hey, I took a medical withdrawal. This is what I need from y'all. What ends up happening is that's the goal of the conversation. But when that conversation starts, what erupts is like resentment over the fact that your parents didn't recognize you had autism earlier, and therefore, like, you've missed out on certain opportunities because maybe they weren't like aware enough or helpful enough. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, that makes sense. I like like my first conversation with them, I couldn't label that like I was like angry with them. I thought I was being like objective, but I was it was it was out of frustration and like my motive, I guess.
Yeah, so that's where, like, so if you want to communicate your needs effectively, you can't have, and but I don't mean just you, in general, human beings, you can't have a conversation about what you need in the future and how you're pissed at someone in the past at the same time. Right? One
Yeah.
is like a forward thinking conversation about, like Ruthie said, developing a plan. But if you start to like dump in your resentment into that conversation, you're not going to accomplish, like, you just can't have a productive conversation. Now, I'm not saying that both conversations shouldn't be had. You should absolutely have both of those conversations. Just make sure you separate them, right? So, like, sit down and talk to your mom or your parents about how you feel resentful, right? Like, you can have that conversation, but separate it out. Like, one is a conversation about the past and reflecting on your relationship and kind of processing your relationship and sharing some of your feelings. It's also best to have that kind of conversation when you've done some internal work, so that your communication of your past experience is free from those emotions taking control of you, because you don't want to trigger your mom's, like, prior stuff as well. So you should be emotionally calm when you talk about resentment. Whereas if that resentment takes control of you, like, it's going to spill out and it's going to end up being potentially damaging to the relationship. So I'd say
Right.
absolutely have a conversation about the past. And then once you know what your needs are, I think, like Kruti said, be concrete and separate that out for what you need going forward. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. Like, so how do I like specifically like try to avoid like triggering like my mom's like trauma?
Yeah. So that's where, so there are probably going to be certain features like tone of voice, accusations, things like that are going to trigger that, right? So that's where the more you're calm and in control of your emotions, the more you've like worked with your emotions and you can sit with that resentment in sort of like a co-op kind of way, you can communicate some of those things. But if the resentment takes control of your mind and you start lashing out at her, then the trauma is going to be triggered. Right? So that's where, like, you know, I would use very concrete language like, Mom, I love you and I appreciate everything that you've done for me. Hopefully you can say that authentically. And I find that a lot of the difficulties in my life are because I feel like I wasn't diagnosed with autism early enough. You know, and there's a part of me that resents you and Dad for like not getting me help sooner, because I actually find that there's a part of me that blames you for my problems. And at the same time, you should also acknowledge that, you know, like, while that may be true, these are also your problems and you have to accept responsibility for your situation. And I would even share that with them and say that, you know, now what I'm trying to do is like acknowledge those feelings and also accept responsibility for my situation. I'm trying to put my life together. And I'd love your support in a couple of particular ways. How does that sound to you?
That does sound nice, but in some ways it almost feels unfair. Like they can't do anything. Like saying that like I feel frustrated about the past. Like that not that like they'll do it, but like, well, I guess, but like there's not much they could do about the past.
Beautiful.
Or me.
So if you share that with your mom, how do you think that would make her feel?
Probably relieve a bit.
100%. So now you've answered your own question, right? So it's interesting because I don't know what your name is, but you actually have the answers already in you. All you need to do is say that. You need to say to your mom, I'm blaming you for something that you can't fix now. And I realize that I'm actually like putting you in an unfair situation. And that in and of itself is going to like repair so much about your relationship. Yeah. And then both of y'all are going to acknowledge that like this mistake potentially happened in the past, but there's like, I sort of don't blame you for it. I sort of do, but I also recognize it's unfair to tell you now. I recognize that you can't fix it, and I'm putting you in an unfair situation. And that sort of like nuanced perspective, as opposed to you screwed up my life,
Right.
is going to be absolutely what you need to move forward. So I think you should just think through that stuff and then share it.
But that's a choice, right? That's a choice of like, I'm going to let go of the resentment and I want to move forward. So you have to be able to make that decision that like, I'm ready to move forward with this relationship. And then like, you got to keep looking forward.
One last point that I have is what makes you think that you said that the quality of your art influences your depression? What do you think your depression does to the quality, your perception of the quality of your art?
That's a
Great.
That's another can of worms that I'm kind of excited to talk about.
Yeah, so I don't know that we have time to talk about it because we're going to focus on relationships.
Right.
I just couldn't maybe it was a mistake on my part for opening the can of worms. But one last bit of advice that I would give you is just consider, for all the artists out there, I've worked with a lot of artists who really struggle with things like depression and bipolar disorder. And what I've really found is that, first of all, oftentimes you're saying that the bad art comes first and that leads to depression. Whereas it's been my experience that sometimes it's the other way around, where the depression starts and then you start thinking that your art is crap. And then the other thing is that I think the most powerful art tends to be created out of people who have really struggled internally and like gone to the depths of despair. And I think a good example of this is if you like go and like listen to
Just to be clear, you are not recommending that you go to the depths of despair to make good art.
yeah, absolutely. So I think a good like I personally was heavily my eyes were opened by listening to a lot of what Robin Williams said about his struggles with depression. And so I think like if you look at a lot of really fantastic people who create there's something about that experience which actually like helps you connect, because when you make that art, those feelings are in there. And when people see that art, what they connect to is like those feelings that they see within their life. So I think it's awesome that you're an artist, and I hope you continue to create art.
Yeah. Um, I what I noticed for these past few months is that even like mentally like one would think if they're struggling with like art, then it's like something to do with their technique. But yeah, it's kind of like what you said. Like it's most of my problems is kind of like from my mind, kind of like my lens of like how I view art and like my definition of like what perfect is.
Yeah. So just be aware of that kind of going forward as you continue to create.
Yeah,
Cool.
I'll give it a try.
Thank you very much. Thanks for being a part of the community, and thanks for calling in today.
Good
Yeah,
luck
thank you
to
so much.
you and your mama.
All right,
All right, bye.
bye.
Alrighty, I think we've got another person coming.
Okay, can I fix this blanket really quick?
Yeah, you can fix it.
Goodness. Hello.
Go, my friend.
I will go, my friend. I'm so nervous. Okay. I have commitment and attachment issues, which basically means I grow close to people very quickly and I lose interest in them just as quickly. How do I learn to have or to make longer lasting relationships? There you go. I got it.
Nice.
Are
well,
these
well said.
friendships or romantic relationships or both?
in in general, yeah, I think most of them. Um,
Most of them are
or both. Yeah,
both.
for
Got
both.
it. Okay.
Like, yeah.
Thoughts, Kruti?
Over you for like 20 years. I'm just
Sorry, I
sticking
just
around.
muted you there for a second.
I was saying I've been over you for 20 years. I don't know why I'm still here. Just kidding.
Oh, I'm aware.
Yeah. That's another thing too, right? So for romantic relationships as well, what's been modeled for me or like the examples I see are people like you uh where I make assumptions that you guys have this sort of feeling with each other like, all the time, you know? And that's kind of like portrayed through pop culture and stuff with other relationships where when people like quote unquote love each other, I kind of assume that a feeling comes with that, right?
Yeah.
Is that really the case? Like, is that how you make long lasting relationships? Is that never made sense to me, you know?
Yeah. It's super confusing because I think what we get shown and what reality is tends to be two different things. But Kruti, you have thoughts?
I still get that feeling. Love still comes with the feeling for me. I don't know.
I was more saying about what this person's dilemma is, which is that they get into what sounds like you go into a relationship with a lot of like connection and excitement, and then it fizzles.
To me, what I'm
It
hearing is
fizzles.
expectations versus reality. Like at the beginning, middle, and the end. Like,
Yeah, so I have thoughts about that. So my first question is, what motivates your acceleration at the beginning of a relationship? Like, how do you get to close to someone so quickly?
Um, that's a really good question. um,
So like, what is it? Like, you feel like excited, you're like what goes through your head? What does your behavior look like? Help me understand what the first week of one of these relationships looks like for you.
so I meet them. I think an easy example and another issue I struggle with is that I also like I crush on people very, very, very easily. So what would happen, for instance, is that like on the first few days of meeting them, everything they say is kind of like interesting to me and unique and new and like I don't know, it just kind of like flashbangs me, right? Like it's like it's unique and very interesting. And then there's like certain things I could say and do that makes me feel closer to them, and that's like a nice
Like
feeling,
what?
I think. Um, Sharing my issues and listening to them share their issues, and then uh, s-
Yeah. So
being
it
yeah,
sounds intense and exciting,
yeah.
right? So this is where, let me think about how to say this. So what about the person makes everything that they say and do so exciting?
Um, what about the person that makes everything they say and do so exciting? Oh,
It's okay to say I
to
don't
me,
know.
it yeah, I don't really know, but there's a few ideas like maybe the novelty of all of it, like they're literally just because they're like a new person that I'm talking to, and it's all like fancy and new to me. But it could also be because like uh, I have feelings towards women because I'm a straight man or something. Those are just some ideas, but yeah,
Yeah.
generally I don't really
So
know.
I think that in short, if you want to understand why things end a certain way, you should understand why they start a certain way. So what I'm hearing is that your relationships have this almost intense emotional need component, like something about your interactions with these people is almost like you're building a castle in the sky. Like something is like, because think about it, like when everything that they say or do is intensely exciting, how on earth can that last?
Right,
I get the sense that what you're doing is that a lot of your excitement is not actually coming from the relationship, it's coming from you, right? So like there's something going on in your mind where everything seems super amazing, and so like you fall into this relationship really quickly, but then you're almost setting this person up to fail, because
right,
if
right.
what color napkin they buy for their kitchen is like the coolest thing for you, that's just not sustainable. So the other
Right,
thing is that
right.
as you share with them and like, oh my God, they understand me so well. And then
Oh
as
my
they share
god.
with you, y'all get super, super close. Because oftentimes what happens
Right.
is people who kind of are this way, they're sort of like this, like kind of playing to the odds sort of thing, where if you share something deep and vulnerable, like, and they're there for you, that bond, whatever your hope is going into the relationship, feels satisfied. And you're like, oh, this is the one. Because like I shared this deep, dark thing about myself and they were there for me. This is the one. This is the one. This is the one. And so you get kind of
Huh.
reinforced with
Yeah.
that concept. And then you start to like almost build this kind of false relationship. And what I'm hearing, what I'm guessing is that there's something going on here where you are projecting something or injecting something into this relationship. And by doing so, you're sort of creating this like unsustainable thing, this unsustainable foundation. Because being absolutely enamored with how many nose hairs they have is not like a sustainable foundation for a relationship,
Unfortunately not.
right? So what I would really
Yeah.
pay attention to is, instead of and this is where a lot of people will focus on, why do I lose interest in them? Because the like this part of the relationship, there's the upswing of the relationship with is, which is awesome. What I want to focus on is like, why is the dip? And everyone focuses on the dip, but the dip is tied to the upswing. So what I would really do is ask yourself, the next time you start crushing super hard on someone, just ask and look within yourself. What is it about, like, why am I so happy that this person is doing this? Like, what is my mind really looking for? What is my mind really getting? What am I getting out of this? Like, when I think every aspect of this person is perfect and amazing, how does that make me feel? Because chances are it makes you feel like really, really good, right? So there's something like weird going on there where you're reinforcing some kinds of concepts, you're giving into some sorts of emotional needs, But I think the problem is that like something about that is not setting up a foundation for like a longer term relationship. And then
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
because your interactions with them are based on the
It,
excitement. And so the
right.
second
It's
that
not
the
on
excitement
them.
wanes, like your interest wanes with it.
Yeah. 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 Literally. Yes.
So
Like
that's where
literally. Yeah.
if you want to build a relationship, like you can't build it on that initial excitement.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. I think I've kind of tried to explore this idea before, where some of the hypotheses I had were like maybe I have this feeling of loneliness, um, and that it's like satiated by these
Yeah.
temporary relationships that come up. Um,
So it's great that you have a
yeah,
hypothesis. Now you need to test it, right? So the next time that you talk to someone, see if like, is there a pervading sense of loneliness that is no longer there when you spend time with this person? And then your solution is
right,
going to be to figure out when did you start feeling like existentially lonely? Because as long as you're using relationships to fix that existential loneliness, like I don't think your relationships, I'm not very optimistic about them. Right? You
yeah,
can't
yeah,
use a relationship to fix something that's broken within you.
right. Um, and I have a really good foil where I have one relationship that's actually lasted, like a friendship or a group of friends that's lasted for years now. And I don't know, I feel like that'd be a good way to compare and contrast the different types,
Cool.
the different types of feelings that come about. Um, because for a long time, I always used to thought that I was kind of like broken, right? Like I was just meant to not grow close to people for long periods of time. But I kind of just forgot that like I've actually been friends with people. I've had long lasting relationships. And what you're saying makes sense because um, I'm basically what it is that I'm not interacting with the person. I'm projecting my own feelings.
Yeah, I mean, so
That's not
that's
how
we may
relationships
have
work.
sort of an answer right there. If you feel like you're broken as a person, incapable of relationships,
Yeah.
that's one hell of a drug for someone else to give you something to take that away. Right? I'm broken and incapable of relationships except when I'm with this person. See, it's not true. I am capable of a relationship. Look at how connected I am to this person. Look at how amazing this person is. So oftentimes what's so addictive about relationships is people who cure things that feel broken within us. I don't know if that makes sense. Because,
Um,
like, this relationship is disproving your fear. And if any relationship disproves your fear, it's the most addictive substance in the world. The problem is that it can't really disprove the fear.
Is this like the reason
yeah,
why
that
people go like in serial relationships? Is that
100%.
right?
That's what we've got here, right? Serial relationships.
Right.
So it's like, it's something you carry with you. It's not
oh
about the other
wow.
person.
That is a really, really interesting concept, and I'll have to think about because I've literally never thought of that before.
And so chances are the relationships that you have that are stable were formed without this thing involved. So the people who you had who were your friends was before, or who knows? But like you may find that there's like a temporal component that this developed at a particular point, and the relationships that you formed prior to this developing are the ones that are like relatively stable. But
Right.
now we're really into like uncharted waters, and I have no idea if that's actually true or not.
Um.
So, okay, so there's
Yeah.
a component of like loneliness and like kind of like self satisfaction that needs to happen, right? That's what you're saying?
Sure.
Okay. And then
Yeah.
what the thing that I wanted to say to you is that doesn't mean that your relationships have to be boring. And I do think that in a romantic relationship, the spark can be there for a good long while.
Yeah. That was another issue with like my commitment issues in particular, because um, since mine wouldn't like last that long, I would just keep hearing things like, "When you love someone, you know you love them." So did I just not find the right person? Did I just do I just need to keep looking until I find the actual love? Was I just debated by the wrong love or something? Is that how that works? That was always something that really confused me. Like,
Yeah.
is there, yeah,
I think
do I
you
foster the
know
relationship?
that you love somebody, but you don't know they're right for you until you've been through a low. So, like, you can know and you can have that feeling and be like, this is the one for me. But until you've kind of gone through a hard time together, you haven't stress tested it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I didn't even know we like so. Yeah, I think like some of these perceptions on love are like very misleading. So I think a part of that is true where when you meet the one, it's the one. The problem is that since you've never met the one and we're presuming there's a one, you have no experience of that. So you have no idea. Like I didn't even
Yeah,
know we were
yeah.
dating for the first couple we were going on dates. I thought we were just hanging out as friends. Like I was so ignorant. And and I thought we were just like chilling, you know?
Oh,
But
did you
apparently
Right.
now?
seriously,
Did you
I
now?
didn't think you would ever date me.
I didn't, clearly.
Right? And so interestingly enough, I think that's this is neither here nor there, but that's I think what got me out of my own head is when I didn't realize I was dating because the second you make it a date, you start projecting all this crap onto it, right? Or I would have projected
Right.
all these like expectations and oh, is this the one? And I'm supposed to feel this way and stuff like that. And so just being
That
completely ignorant of it is what seems to have worked.
I feel like I would have really changed the dynamic of our relationship in the beginning.
Yeah, I completely agree. It would have ended terribly.
I wouldn't
Yeah,
have been
that
so
makes
into your
sense.
nose hairs.
So seriously, thanks a lot for calling in. Any closing thoughts that you have, or anything you want to share before we
Um,
head out? Or
where is the Everything Everywhere All at Once video coming out? When is that? When is that happening? It's the best movie I've ever seen in my life.
um, soon.
We have no
Yay!
control.
We're gonna try to move one step closer to that with one of our secret projects, which we'll hopefully be announcing soon.
Oh,
But
oh,
a big
okay.
piece of
Well,
everything. But I don't know about
oh,
everything.
yeah. We're talking about the movie, right? Like,
I don't understand what you're talking
I
about. I may not just.
oh, I was talking about there's a movie called Everything Everywhere All at Once. Not like literally.
Oh, I, that's news to me.
Oh my-
Shows you how.
Alok asked me who
In
Nicki Minaj was last week, so we're behind the times.
okay.
Oh, it's okay. One step at a time, like you said, right?
All right. Thanks for
But go
calling
watch
in.
that movie, please, for me. Okay, thank you.
All right, I'll check it out. Okay. Good questions. I'm really enjoying
Yeah,
getting to talk with people.
me too.
Yeah, I don't know. What's this movie? Chat?
I thought he was talking about the YouTube video about working on my this while working on my that while working on my this,
Oh, yeah.
but this is something else.
It sounded like a fake title. So I thought it doesn't sound like.
It sounded like a Bollywood title. You know how their titles are like sentences or rhetorical questions?
Yeah, but usually they have like proper nouns, right? It's
Right.
not just like. I didn't even know what was it. Just it's the movie about everything all at once.
Yeah, I think he might have been asking for like a review or like a breakdown. Anyway,
Well, ask for the wrong thing.
we don't do that here.
All right, I think we've got our next guest.
Great.
Hello?
Hello.
Oh.
Hello.
Hi.
So I keep on assuming that my partner is upset with me whenever he just like sigh or if he's silent for a long time. And I seem to be afraid of him getting mad at me. So my question is, how can I stop fearing that?
I didn't hear the very first part of what you were saying. Can you say that one more time,
Oh,
please?
sorry. I'm a bit quiet, but I'll try to. Okay. I keep on assuming my partner is upset with me. Whenever he hears sigh, he's silent for a long time. I seem to be afraid of him getting mad at me. How can I stop fearing that?
Does your partner get mad at you?
Well, no. I just always kind of assume that he's going to get mad at me whenever he shows like this slightest like sign of being upset with something. I assume it's like about me.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying.
Do other people get mad at you?
Not really.
So how do you so this is an interesting, you want to take a stab at this, or
No, I just love her. I want to hold her.
so it's kind of interesting because let me just think about. So a lot of times people will ask questions like, how do I stop being afraid that my partner is mad at me? So what a lot of people are looking for is a solution that removes the emotion from the equation, right? Like, I want to stop feeling this way. Whereas I think the real answer is not to stop feeling that way, because something is going on in your mind. There's somewhere along the way, your mind has learned, right? Because that's what our mind does, that silence or a lack of overt expression of anger means that someone is angry with you and they're just not saying it. And the problem with that is that if you continue to kind of be in your own head, it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like if I say to Kruti, like, why are you mad at me?
Yeah. By the 10th time, I'm going to be like...
Right? So she's like, I'm not mad at you. No, I know you're mad at me.
Right.
Like, why are you mad at me? Like, what did I do? Why won't you tell me?
I'm not mad!
Right?
Yeah.
And then she yells, I'm not mad. So it sort of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So your mind sort of learns like, oh, like they really were. See, I knew it. I knew it all along. They were actually mad at me. So you've got to be a little bit careful there. So what I would actually recommend doing is sharing with your partner what you're feeling in that moment. And so this isn't where, and then what your partner is likely to do is to try to reassure you, I'm not mad at you. And then you can share with them again that, you know, when you say that to me, for some reason, my mind isn't able to digest it. And then oddly enough, for you and your partner, for your partner not to reassure you, like we don't want to have your partner try to fix you being afraid that they're mad with you, but that the two of you can just sort of sit with your fear and like just tolerate it. Because the problem is going to be that as you tolerate an emotion, it naturally extinguishes over time. The problem with emotions is when we give in to them, they grow. But when we just like sort of like respond neutrally to an emotion, it actually like extinguishes over time. So one way to kind of think about it, like that's the principle behind exposure therapy, which is that we literally expose patients to what they're afraid of. And then we just let the fear come up and then we just don't do anything with it. And then the fear like kind of naturally extinguishes. So what I would recommend is share with your partner what's going on in your head, but don't try to fall into the trap of reassurance.
Before you do that, can I ask you a few questions?
Yes.
How long have y'all been together?
A little bit more than a year.
More than a year?
Well,
Go ahead.
long distance. So we have met like maybe 3 times.
Are you still long distance?
Yes. We're planning on like not being long distance, but for now we're long distance. But the few times we have met, I noticed that it's, you know, it's not only over online video calls that I feel that whenever he makes a kind of angry look or something, that I fear that he's mad at me. It's also the same in real life. So I notice it's not about like the this online things can be, you know, confusing. It's the same in real life too.
And okay, so long distance relationship, did you meet in person or you met online?
Oh, we met in person.
Ah, okay. And how long did you know each other in person?
Uh, about a half year. Oh wait, what? In person?
Okay, and were the kind of size and looks at that, did that happen when you were first together? I'm trying to understand if this is like a new thing or if this has always been there.
No. When we first went together, I didn't notice that. It was like a bit later that it started coming when we like get to know each other more and stuff.
Got it.
Another question that I have is it okay for your partner to be mad at you?
I guess not. I guess I'm like really sensitive to like people being mad at me. So like the few times he have been mad at me, it has been really like bad for me.
Yeah, so I think more long term. So I think there's like a short term, like communication is key here. And what does communication mean? Because everyone's like, communication is really important, but no one ever tells you, like, what does that actually mean? So I would share that, for some reason, my mind is telling me that you're upset with me right now and it's making me uncomfortable.
Have you, when he was, is it mad at you or upset with you? Like, are these situations where he feels like you've wronged him in some way and has been like angry with you? Or are these like more just general?
Yeah, no, the first one.
Okay.
So like upset with me.
Okay. And then,
Does not happen a lot, but you know, it happens sometimes very rarely.
okay. And then
Um,
when you guys make up, do you talk about how, hey, that was really hard for me when you got that angry with me?
yeah, we talk about it, and what he says it is usually like, yeah, I know I probably shouldn't have like gotten that mad at you. Like I probably shouldn't have started with the insults. You know, that was like a step too far. I should have kept it like more
Okay. So,
objective. You know,
okay.
not like
Yeah, I feel like I understand a little bit more. And I definitely agree with what Alok said. But I do think, in addition to this, you can have some boundaries over what you are willing and not willing to like engage with. So you can say like, "Hey, I really can't handle it when you get angry with me like this." And if you are feeling this way, I need some space. I need some time. I need you to, because you're long distance, also that makes it hard. So you can be like, can you write this down for me? Because it's hard for me to be in a situation where I think you're going to explode at me or something. I don't know the dynamic exactly, but I think I don't like the idea of somebody going about their relationship kind of constantly in fear of their partner getting mad at them. So I feel like
yeah,
having conversations around like how to healthily express that you're not happy about something the other one is doing is a good idea. Like I think it's a good idea to have conversations around like, I'm getting a little anxious that you're getting upset with me because the last time we went through this, this was really hard for me. So if you are upset with me, can you please, like, fill in the blank? Can you please let me know before it gets bad? Can you please write it down for me so I can know what's going on with you? Can you please just be straightforward that, hey, I'm doing something that upsets you? Like, whatever that irrelevant situation is. But I think I'm nervous that you would kind of have that constant fear because long distance relationships are hard. So sometimes I think, like, if that is what is happening, then I feel like a conversation about how to communicate discontent with each other is a good idea. There's a possibility, like I know we were long distance for years, and sometimes I feel like all got the worst of me because that was the time where I was like, I've had such a shitty day, and here's all the bad stuff that's happening. And he was the person that I would kind of like unload on. And I think there's a way, like, if that could have easily been interpreted as like, God, this girl does not want to be with me. Like, she's angry with me because like I'm constantly hearing the complaints. So I guess if I had to like branch this out, right? Like, he either is mad at you or he's not. If he's not mad at you, what is actually going on? If he is mad at you, have some conversations around boundaries and what's going on and like healthy expressions of anger. And I also really like the idea of like, once you make up, like, what did we learn?
I don't know.
Like, when you make up, do you feel like, oh, this, I've learned that he doesn't like this, or I've learned that when I do this, this is like something that he can't deal with?
Yeah, I guess you do. Like you learn how the person like felt when you did something.
Right.
You can like understand them better.
Right.
Do you feel like you could do what Kruti is asking you to do?
Communicating when I start to feel like he's mad at me.
I'm sorry, what?
Like communicating when I feel like he's
Yeah,
mad
do
at
you
me.
think you could do that? Do you think you could set boundaries on him about how insulting you is not okay?
Well, I feel like he won't listen when he's angry.
What about when he's not angry?
When he's not angry, yes.
Okay. So I think that's useful. I think the other thing to just remember, or maybe I can ask you, is what kind of emotions should you expect your partner to feel over the course of your relationship?
What do you mean by over the course of?
So, like, let's say you date this person for another year. Which emotions do you think your partner will feel over the course of that year?
All kinds of emotions, like
Yeah, right? Exactly. So, like, in a weird way, I know it's kind of weird, but like, he's going to get angry. And that's okay. It's like part of the price you pay for being in a relationship, right? Because you're not the perfect partner and he isn't the perfect partner.
But angry with her?
Sure.
But it sounds like she doesn't see it coming. Like, it's just kind of out of nowhere.
Well, I mean, I think there's a couple things. So you can absolutely do all the communication stuff, but you know, what I'm really noticing is that there's a part of you that feels like anger in a relationship is unacceptable and should be avoided at all costs. Is that fair?
yeah.
So I think that I think is you're setting an unrealistic expectation on yourself because it is a part of relationships. Does that make sense? It may be terrifying.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that that as you're saying that he's gonna feel all kinds of emotions because he's a human too, and I can't expect him to not ever get angry because then he would be like a robot, I have to accept that he's going to be angry sometimes and be angry with me sometimes even, but
So
I guess I'm just a bit confused how I can like assume somebody is mad at me just because they like sigh. And then even though I ask him like all the time, like, are you mad at me when he does that? And he says no. He's still like the next time he sigh, I still are like, are you mad at me? Like even though I constantly get told sigh doesn't equal that somebody is mad at you.
Yeah,
You
so
know?
I think there's that's where the communication piece comes in. So I think there's like two things here, just to kind of summarize. One is the communication piece, that when you're feeling like this person is angry with you, sometimes it sounds like that perception is actually incorrect. The challenge is that if we put ourselves in his shoes, how is he, if he sighs, which humans do, and you interpret that as anger, like how can he kind of fix that, right? Because it's kind of hard, because it's kind of like the example I shared with Kruti, where it's like, if I'm like, hey, are you mad at me? And she says no, and I'm like, oh, she's just saying that. That's what my mind will tell me, right? She's not really telling me what's going on. And so you're sort of setting up a situation in which, like, there's only one outcome, because you're not able to be reassured. So communication there is really important. But I think the other thing that is more long-term is just your relationship with being unable to tolerate his anger. So if he's insulting you and stuff, that's not acceptable. So you should set boundaries around that. Maybe not while he's angry, but after the fact, you could say, hey, you know, like, that's really not okay. So completely agree with that. But just for you to understand that, first of all, he's going to get upset in relationships. He may get upset with you. And then this is the wild thing. Just because he's upset with you doesn't mean that you did something wrong. Right? Because, like, sometimes we get mad at people. In fact, frequently we get mad at people, especially those closest to us, when we are upset with something else in our life.
Right.
Right? So if I'm having problems at work and I can't yell at my boss and I'm carrying that anger around with me, what am I going to do when I get home? I'm going to lash out at my family members. Right? So that's where, like, he may even get angry with you, but somewhere along the way, you've got to do some, like, good, deep work and understand that just because he's mad at you doesn't actually mean that you're doing anything wrong. Because that's just the way that humans are. He may not be able to separate his anger or frustration with other things from, and it make, you know, he may let it out on you in some way, which isn't good on his part. I'm not saying that that's okay, but we're human. And for you to sort of understand that, like, he may sometimes get mad at you because that's what happens in relationships. Sometimes it's unfortunate, but we offer the worst parts of ourselves to the people that we care about the most and the people that we're closest to. Which is a real tragedy, that we'll, you know, behave one way with people that we don't care about, and then we behave in our worst ways with people that we love and we do care about. Thoughts about that?
I think it sounds good. But I remember you also said something that caught my interest about like not trying to avoid the fear, like not trying to fix the fear, but like sitting with the fear. It cannot maybe the same thing as communicating. I don't know, but
Yes. So I'll give you an example, okay? So I was once working with someone who had been in a prior relationship where their partner was unfaithful with them. So this person started to they had a lot of distrust because they'd been betrayed. And so later, a couple years later, they found a new relationship, ended up getting pregnant. And what they sort of noticed is, as they got more pregnant and as they started to feel insecure about their body, they started to become really, really paranoid that their partner would start being unfaithful with them. Completely different person. And the person had not really given them any reason to, you know, think that this person is going to be unfaithful. You following me so far?
yeah.
And so then what would happen is the person would, the person I was working with, the pregnant woman, would be afraid, be paranoid, okay, like, my partner's cheating on me. So what she would do is, when he would take a shower at night, she would start going through his phone. And just to make sure that he wasn't doing anything bad, right? So then she did it once, and she was like, okay, so it looks like I have nothing to worry about. And then after she checked his phone once, do you think the fear went away?
No.
Absolutely not, right? So then she was like, okay, I have nothing to worry about. Went away for a couple of days, and then it started creeping back in. The more her belly grew bigger, the less attractive she felt, the more the paranoia got worse. And then she started checking his phone more frequently. And then it got to the point where she checked his phone every night when he went to take a shower. And after she did that for a week, do you think she stopped?
No.
Of course not, right? So the more that she gave into the fear, the bigger it became. And so eventually he caught her, right? And then they both wound up in my office. And so we sort of had a conversation about it. And then what we sort of came to the conclusion of, because he felt like it was a betrayal of trust, he felt like it was very, very unfair for her to think those thoughts about him because he had been nothing but faithful. And he was like, I've never done anything that, I've never, like, it's not fair what you're doing. Like, I understand that you're afraid, but it's not fair to me that you're violating my privacy. And so then what we kind of came to the conclusion, and the person was like, I actually don't mind that you're looking through my phone. Like, I have nothing to hide. But like the fact that you're kind of doing it behind my back and like I feel kind of violated. And so then what we sort of came to the conclusion of is when she's feeling that way, she should communicate that to him. And then something cool started to happen. So she tells him, hey, like, I'm feeling kind of paranoid. I'm feeling like, you're going to find someone who's prettier than me and someone who's not pregnant and things like that. And so he'd be like, that's not the case. Do you want to look through my phone? And then he'd offer it, right? And then she'd say like, no, it's okay. And then like over time, what happened is like every time she sort of felt that way, he was like, you can look through my phone if you want to. Would that make you feel better? And she would say no. And then over time, she's like, I'm kind of feeling like I want to look through your phone. And then they just like sit together, they talk about it for a few minutes, and then they'd be fine. So sort of like acknowledging the fear, noticing the fear, but not giving into it kind of together seemed to actually diminish it because then she's not giving into it. So the thoughts and emotions in our mind that we give into are the ones that grow. Does that make sense in terms of how to sit with something?
Yes. It makes very much sense.
Right? And someone in chat is saying second phone confirmed. And believe me, that was a part of the conversation as well. Right? And then eventually what you realize is there's like, if your partner is paranoid, there's nothing you can do. There's some stuff you can do within reason, but there's no amount of objective truth that you can give to the paranoid mind to convince it. Does that make sense? Like people can be so damn paranoid that second phones, third phones, fourth phones, fifth phones, right? Like your mind can take control of you. And so that's where I'm sort of suggesting that you talk to your partner about how you're feeling, and then y'all learn how to sit with it, as opposed to, kind of giving into it or stopping feeling that way.
That's mine.
Okay. Does that help?
Yes, it helps very much. Thank you.
Thank you for calling in, and good luck.
Good luck.
I hope y'all are
Yes,
able
thank
to
you.
not be long distance anymore, because that sucks.
It does.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
Bye. All right. We've got our next caller. Go ahead.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you so much for having me. My name is Dylan.
Hi, Dylan.
Let me just scroll up quickly to find my question again. Yeah, so my question. Last year I had a huge falling out with a friend of mine, and she tried contacting me, and I didn't answer back then. And recently I felt ready to send her a message myself, so I did. And she hasn't opened it yet, and it will probably stay that way. And this has made me feel like I lost a huge part, or like a huge friend in my life. So how should I go about this loss, and how can I prevent such things from happening in the future?
I'm sorry that happened. Do you want to go first?
Go.
Okay. Yeah, I'm really sorry that happened. I think this is one of those, like, even the best case scenario is not like you will have that friendship back at 100%. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like once these friendships fall apart, like there is no 100% anymore. So I think like kind of mourning that relationship is appropriate, where like this person isn't going to be in your life in the same way anymore. But if it's more of a question of like how to avoid this in the future, I think that's really about the dynamic of how it happened in the first place. So I would want to ask you more questions about kind of what happened to be able to give you better advice about how to avoid it. What
Uh, sure. So you want me to give more context about it?
more context to like know what to say, but do you have any initial thoughts before he gives context?
Yeah, so I didn't mean to laugh. I realized it could have come across as callous because like I just hear this story so damn much,
Yeah.
and I do think there's actually like a super simple answer to it.
Mm-hmm.
But if we want to go into the context, like so we can sort of answer the question given everything that you've asked, which is going to give you a general answer about how to behave, which I think is pretty straightforward. But if we want to kind of dive into it, or maybe I can say my piece and then
Sure.
we can get more context.
You can give the general advice.
So, first thing to understand. So, like, let's understand timeline. So, what was the distance? What was the time frame between the falling out you had and when your friend sent you or former friend sent you a message?
Like basically instantly.
Okay. And what was the time frame between you not responding to that message and you sending them a message?
A year.
Okay. And how long have you waited for a response?
About 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay, so let's just understand the situation. Your response time to your friend is how long?
A year.
Okay, so like, and you're expecting a response in how long?
I'm like not even really expecting a response. I like realized that like she could be doing the exact same like thing to me.
100%, right? So,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
don't think that's out of malice. I don't think she's
No,
like,
no, no.
screw you. You're messaging me after a year. I mean, there may be some kind of resentment, but let's just acknowledge for a moment that it takes time for human beings to process feelings. And in your case, it took you a year, which is like totally fine. And so give your friend some leeway and don't give up on the relationship yet, because I think, it may be salvageable. So I just give your friend, like, it's been 2 weeks and it took you a year. So, like, cut your friend some slack and be a little bit patient. The other general advice, sorry, you can be compassionate. The other general advice is that when someone sends you a message, this is something that everyone needs to understand. When someone sends you a message, you should at least respond in some way that is like respectful and lets them know you're considering it. This whole like leaving things on red is just so painful for people. So if your question was how do I prevent this from happening again, what I would strongly recommend is that if they send you a message right away, you at least respond to them and you say, hey, like the falling out that we went through has been really hard on me. Like I'm going to need some time to process. At least
Yeah.
let them know that because like imagine what that experience is like for your friend where y'all are close friends, you have a falling out. They sort of extend some kind of hand. And I'm not saying you have to patch things up. I'm not saying that you have to like, have a deep conversation with them, but at least some kind of receipt of acknowledgement and letting them know that you need some space to process. I think would really, if you're trying to figure out how do I prevent this from happening again, that one message I think could impact a lot. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Yeah. So to give a bit more context, you said that you like heard this story a lot before, so you probably like can like already guess that I like kind of had a crush on this girl. So that also like made me like a lot like clingy and jealous and like very controlling over her, which she also didn't like, which was like one of the major points of the reason of that like the falling out. And um yeah, so basically like I wanted to respond when she sent a message, and I'm like gonna do like a confession here for like 4K people. But like I kind of did that in a manipulative way. Like I wanted her to worry about me, I guess. Well, not I guess, I know.
Muted. So I was just saying, I think Kruti, go.
Saying that we were commending your self awareness.
Yeah, and I was saying that you know I think it's a really big step you've taken, and if you want to prevent these kinds of things happening again, you know, as we say, good diagnosis precedes good treatment. Even though nothing here is medical treatment, I think it's a good, you know, general thing that you have to understand a problem before you can fix it. And your being able to admit some of your feelings and your awareness of how you are feeling, I think is the first step, is the antidote to like those kinds of manipulative behaviors. Because once you acknowledge the way that you feel, they lose their ability to control you as powerfully.
Right.
Are you still crushing on her?
No, I've moved on from that.
Sag.
Sorry, y'all fell apart, but yeah, that seems like you know kind of what happened, and so you would be able to not do that again.
And for what it's worth, I wouldn't give up on the relationship quite yet. And
Nope.
I would even say, you know, given a little bit of space, I don't think it's a huge problem to even send another message, like one more message, maybe in a couple of months, if you really feel like you need to for the sake of your closure, and then let it go.
Yeah, it's also a bit difficult because we share a friend group, and like with the remainder of those friends, I still like I'm still on good terms with. But like oftentimes when we're hanging out and she wants to join, I like have to go away.
Why?
Wait, do your
Well,
friends know what happened between the two of you?
they do.
Okay.
Well, yeah, and to answer the question of why, wait, go ahead.
Trying to toggle the mutes and stuff too. So you're trying to figure out a way to both be in the same place together.
Well, yeah, because like I basically I wanna like hang out with my friends, and it's kind of hard then to do that when I get well sent away. Often, like I understand why I get sent away. It's because like it gets awkward, and she doesn't want to be in the same room as me, and I've been kind of like, you know, like a villain or like a negative person towards her. So, well, I mean, it's basically like the majority like vote, like they're basically like, yeah, I don't really want him here, and the other person says, well, yeah, I also think it's gonna get awkward. I believe that you should like go away, basically.
Got it.
Yeah, so that's where, I mean, something about what you're saying really pisses me off.
Yeah.
So we don't know the details of how much of a manipulative person you were, so maybe that's.
But a year is a
So
long
yeah, I mean, I would.
jail sentence. I feel like your time is served.
So here's where like, so we have potentially a failing in this community, which is that we tend to accept people and root for them no matter how bad they've screwed up, right? So that's where like I think it's important for you to take responsibility for your behavior, and I think it's important for you to have a conversation with your friend group about what it sounds to me like unfair treatment. So like you know, you can say, I would ask your friends, like, what does this mean for us going forward? Does this mean that y'all are going to essentially like send me away anytime she wants to hang out with you? Does this mean that like
I'd like
essentially?
to interrupt. Could I interrupt
Yeah.
that? Because I feel like I haven't given like quite a neutral stance, because to give like more nuance, to be like more specific, um, it was like so our friend group consists of 4 people, including me, so still 4 people. So it was for a party, that she and one other person hosted, and the other person like invited me to that party. I was welcome there, and but then like the other day, she said like the girl that I fell out with said that I don't really want him there at our party. So it's like a 50-50% like leadership
Yeah. So,
about that party, yeah. So and then like basically like I already had that 50% that didn't want me there, and then the other friend that I was on good terms with said that yeah, I kind of like understand her, and like she didn't say that she was picking sides, but it definitely felt that way, that she was like basically picking sides. And I mean, I understand like it's like a girls side thing, and also like I've been like the bad person in that story. So I understand why I got sent away from there, but like the other friend that I didn't talk about in that story, like he was like pretty neutral about it. Like he definitely felt bad
so,
about
so I mean, I think those
like
details are important, but
mm,
also the broader issue still stands that I think a lot of times in friend groups, crappy behavior gets propagated because it isn't explicitly named, right?
crappy behavior. We're talking about my behavior.
We're talking about your friend's behavior now. So,
Oh,
so
okay.
I think that if you've screwed up and you were an ass, like, so this is where I think that you should have a conversation with your friends about your behavior, how you were out of line, how you've apologized, and then essentially ask your friends to lay out what you should expect. So I think a very, very, very good way to navigate relationships is to ask people what your expectations should be about their behavior. Because when you do this, I know this could torpedo your friend group, but let's just talk through it, okay? So this is
Uh-huh.
why I sort of mentioned that I kind of feel pissed off because I feel like kind of combative. I feel like, so maybe don't listen to me. Thanks for that facial expression. It really helps keep me in check. But this is the kind of thing where like if y'all are having trouble, so this is just general advice, right? So if people are like sort of doing this weird like no one's really saying it, but you kind of get disinvited and people are awkward and stuff like that, I think it's important to have a conversation with people and say, these friendships are really important to me. I want to understand what to expect. I understand that I screwed up. I understand that I was manipulated. And if y'all sort of feel like because of that, you know, there is like I'm always going to be kind of a second class citizen in this friend group, like that's fine. I just want to know, is that what I should expect? Or is this the kind of thing where my ability to spend time with y'all always depends on the comfort of a third person who
I kind of like already got to expect that. This situation only happened one time, and I don't know if it's by pure coincidence or by, I don't know, like chatting and meeting up behind my back, that like I never like besides that situation from the party, I never got into another situation where we both, me and the girl who would have
yeah, so
who I fell out
that
with.
doesn't sound nearly as bad to me because I think it's a whole different story when someone is a host and doesn't want you invited. Right? So like if I'm a host, I get to choose who I invite.
I have questions.
Yeah.
How old are you?
20 years old.
20.
And
Okay. And
this,
so
yeah.
you've already done like a year of penance with this friend group, right?
Uh, penance as in, sorry, I'm not a native English speaker.
Oh, sorry. So like you've already kind of
Paid the price.
Yeah.
You've been punished for a year.
Well, yeah, by punishing that means like not really getting the chance to hang out with the friend group as much, and like also not having the chance to hang out with that specific friend as much.
Okay. And so you're 20. Are you at university?
Yeah.
Okay. And
And
how
also like this was my like only real friend group at university.
Yeah, so it sounds like to me you're trying to like hold on to these people because these are your only friends so far, right? Or only like
Yeah.
good friends so far.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so I think 20 is a good age to kind of go through this. I think don't you're in this situation because you were manipulative and jealous, right? So I feel like if you follow what Alok is saying, it's just going to play into a reputation of being manipulative. So I would not recommend that.
Okay.
She's probably right here.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Because like when you have those conversations, you have to deliver it. Like you have to say the lines the way Alok says them. If you say those lines in a way that a normal person says the lines, like, "Hey, I just want to know what to expect from this friend group," like it's not gonna land in the same way. So I would not recommend that. The thing is, you made these friends probably you're halfway through university.
Yeah, about that.
Okay, so I think now is the right time to start branching out and trying to keep the relationships you have here, one-on-one friendships, in a way that lets you hold on to the people that you want to hold on to, lets the people that need some distance and like frankly aren't mature enough to navigate like the complexities of having to like pick a side. And I think now is the time to kind of spread your wings. I know that's so much easier said than done, but to me, these are like learning moments, really. Like, what have we learned?
Yeah, absolutely.
And
So what you're saying is find new friends, or am I understanding it wrong?
I'm saying two things. I made an and sign because I feel like when Alok and I talk, things get confusing. I'm saying two things. I'm saying one, make new friends, and I'm saying two, keep out of these four, keep the friends that are important to you in a one-on-one setting. Because I don't think it's too hard to have built these relationships and just flush them down the toilet. So I don't think you should do that. I think you should hold on to those friends and also find new friends.
Yeah. I feel like it's been a bit like I'm doing the latter thing that you said about like the keeping the one-on-one friendships. I'm doing that, but the first thing, like making new friends, I felt that like since the falling out, I haven't really been able to get as deep of a friendship or like get as close to people as I've been like really I've met new people, but I like it's very superficial.
We're muted again. Sorry, Alok is controlling the mutes and it's very difficult. My question was if these people that you're seeing that are superficial friendships are like people you're just seeing in passing at the university, or if you're like socializing with them outside of that.
Yeah, the people that I've been seeing are at the university, and it's basically just like it's to have friends. Basically, it's just so I'm not like hanging around alone because like the first semester of this year, I was basically hanging around all alone because I didn't have a friend group, and then in the second semester, I like kind of like got my drift, like I got back on track. So and I met like some new people just at university, but it's just yeah, as I said, to just have friends basically. It's not really like, oh, I really want a deep connection. It's just so I'm not alone.
100% understand. I think loneliness and isolation is one of like, if it's not the number one, it's in the top three things that college students struggle with. I think it's loneliness and isolation is, I think, number one. Number two is like a fear of judgment. And I think the third is like stress management. So the first thing I want you to know is like, you're not alone. A lot of people feel this way, and a lot of people are also trying to make meaningful friendships in the same situation. I think that the how did you make these friends in the first place?
Well, first of all, it's just the university side that's a bit the problem. I do have friends like outside of university. I still have friends from middle school and high school. So it's not necessarily that I really feel alone. It's just at university, the university side is a bit. But the way that I made these friends is like by pure coincidence, really.
So
Like I joined some like activities that's for like the first years. Like well, you get to know each other and all that. Um, and I met like one guy through that, and then that guy knew someone else. And that was basically the friend group.
I think just for the record, Dylan, I think Kruti's advice is way better than mine for this one. So I would definitely listen to her, because I think if you do what I said, you're going to drive your friends away because they're not going to be able to tolerate it. And I think that at some point you've got to, sometimes there are situations, you're 20, so maybe not yet. There are situations in which you've got to channel your inner Chad Thundercock, right? You, they're,
Talking about here.
huh?
What are we?
I'm not entirely
What
sure.
are we talking about here?
So here's what I'd say. If you want a softer way to talk to your friends, what you can sort of share with them is say, hey, I really miss being able to hang out together. It's been really awesome that we've been able to maintain one-on-one relationships. I really value your friendship, and I hope that we'll all be able to hang out together again. You can say something like that. That's a lot more manageable. And I would also say that at some point, if your friends are treating you like a second-class citizen, that you shouldn't put up with that. Like, there's a certain amount of, like, you screwed up, so, you should pay for
Face
that.
punishment.
But at some point, like, if you're invested in this friend group and you care about these people, and they're sure you're the guilty party, that's where, like, understanding a little bit about, like, what can you expect from this relationship, like 10 years from now, is one of them going to get married because y'all have been friends for 10 years and you're not going to get invited to the wedding because this person is invited to the wedding, right? So there's a part of me that still is pissed off about the situation that you're in, and I feel like you're being treated unfairly up to a point. And I'm not saying that you should lean into that now, because at 20 years old, no one knows how to handle authentic, like, conflict in relationships. So don't do what I said. And at the same time, like, over time, you don't want to hang out with people who are going to perpetually, for whom forgiveness and a repair of a relationship is, like, not in the cards, right? You want to form friendships with people who, despite your mistakes, will be able to patch things up. And if the friend group that you have, if you screw up once, if you're in the doghouse for the rest of your life, or if you get punished for the rest of your life, if you get treated like a second-class citizen for the rest of your life, that's not a friend group that I would want for you.
I agree. The only last thing that I want to kind of say to you is about awkwardness. And awkwardness is something you can push through. Like, it's going to be awkward for 1, 2, 3, 4 parties. After that, it's just the way it is. So I do think standing up for yourself in this situation is the right thing to do, because I think that if these people are not going to be your friends anymore, this is kind of like the way you're going to know whether or not it's worth salvaging those one-on-one relationships or the group relationship. If you do say, like, hey, look, I screwed up. I really would like for us all to be friends. If we can do that, that would make me really happy. And if we can't do that, then, like, I just kind of need to know so I can move on if I need to move on. And I think that is a fine thing to do. What you need to know is that if that is the approach that you take, there's a possibility that people will say, yes, it's time to move on. So if you want to force that conversation, you have to know that, like, it can kind of go one of two ways. So that's why that's kind of like up to you on whether, like, how strongly this is kind of bothering you. But I think, I think I wouldn't let the
Yeah,
awkwardness win.
her. I would listen to her for sure.
Yeah, I've like sorta like already sort of like had this conversation. I mean, it's not really hard to have this like conversation with them because there's only like two people there, so they basically like know everything that happened. But I'm mostly worried about like what, because like now I'm having all these like superficial friendships and not real deep friendships. I'm mostly worried about that.
Yeah, so that's part of the reason that I was sort of saying like have a earnest conversation. So I think one thing that it's kind of hard to do as human beings is like if we're holding space in our heart, for lack of a better term, for a certain group of people, sometimes there is not space for other people. And so we normally think about this in a romantic term, in a romantic sense, right? So if I'm like still in love with my ex from 10 years ago and I never really got over her, it's going to be hard for me to participate in a healthy relationship. The thing is, I think we see that for all kinds of other relationships. So we see that for friendships. We see that for marriages and like stepchildren, right? If there's no space in my heart for my stepkids, like that's not going to be a healthy relationship. And so if you're sort of emotionally invested in these friends, it may actually make it a little bit harder for you to make space for other people.
But I do think one of the things that you say about friendship that I strongly believe in is like a routine. So like if a couple of you always go for coffee after this class, or you have like Tuesday evenings you play tennis with this person, or like some sort of regularity, that's where I think you get the most opportunity to develop a deeper relationship, when you have regular interactions outside of your kind of day-to-day activities. I would
Yeah, so
I would try to organize something like that.
yeah, that's been kind of like happening with like the one remaining friend that I still have from that friend group. But like I'm pretty much hearing that if I like want to make deeper connections again, it's like a situation of just move on. Am I hearing that correctly?
No, it's take what's good about this friend group, keep that close to you, and also don't be limited to just these 4 people, because also it's just 4 people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's true. Like when I've been talking about this right now, I feel like, I mean, it's just for people. Like that, it sounds kind of like harsh, but there's always like new people, not really replacements, but like still, there's new people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cool. Good luck to you, bro.
All right. Yeah. Thanks so much for
Thanks,
the advice,
Dylan.
guys. Goodbye.
Bye.
Alrighty.
Can I take a quick break?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I continue without you? I may sabotage things. Actually, keep go. I'll come back. I mean, I'll be careful.
Okay.
I'll channel my inner
I think we
Kruti.
should talk about friendships for a second, because that's a recurring theme.
Well, let's get our next person. We've got time for maybe one more.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome.
Hi. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
I'm Sedona.
Nice to meet you, Sedona. What's your situation? How can we help?
Awesome. So, my question was about how to rebuild and gain like emotional mana again after losing it. So, like, I'm like a pretty empathetic person, and I've been like the therapist friend for like a lot of my relations growing up, and especially online. And uh, I had like past boundary issues, well, not knowing how to say no and being burnt out because of school and toxic situations, whatever. And so I found recently I haven't had that emotional mana to have like deep conversations or be there to support others. And even having the energy to like watch your videos and whatnot has been difficult. So I was wondering if you had any advice on like how to gain that back again.
Yeah, so I heard you say something about boundary issues. Can you help me understand that a little bit?
Yeah, so I had trouble like separating myself from the other person. Like I would always like put them ahead of myself, and I wouldn't know how to say no and have that separation between like their interests and my interests, and um yeah, maintaining my own in the relationship.
So
I kind of just adapt to what they wanted.
and so you use the past tense. So is that not an issue now? Like, have you learned how to set boundaries around that?
So it's like a work in progress, but I felt like I've made a lot of progress, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and you still feel kind of emotionally drained?
Yes, I
And
do.
how long have you been emotionally drained?
Whew, probably like months, like probably since like January or February, to be honest.
And how long have you put limits on the amount of emotional support that you put on other people? I mean, that you give to other people?
Um, since last November, I think,
So let me
or
just get this
October. Yeah.
timeline straight. So you're, just to also give a summary for Kruti, and if I missed something, please let me know, Sedona. So
For sure.
if I'm hearing your situation correctly, you're a very good friend to have. You're very emotionally supportive. You're kind of like the therapist friend. And in the past, you've had trouble setting limits on that and found that kind of friendship, very emotionally draining. And so it's a
Yes.
work in progress. You're learning how to better set limits with people in terms of your own bandwidth and kind of putting them ahead of you. But what I'm
Yeah.
sort of hearing is that it's been about 6 months since you've stopped being kind of like a battery for other people and charging
Yeah.
people at your own expense.
Mm-hmm.
But you're still feeling emotionally drained.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I could also be like, I'm also in, I just finished my school. I have like 14 classes a week, so I was probably very burnt out from that as well. But it's yeah, I am feeling emotionally drained. I was feeling better for a while, but then I don't know, I haven't had the mana.
I have a question. Do you normally give more than you receive in relationships?
Yeah. Well, like before, yes. Now I feel like I've been doing a bit more receiving, uh, which is nice. But overall course of life, yes. Yes,
Okay,
very
so
much so.
recently, so it's not just that you're giving less, it's that you're receiving more.
Yeah. Recently, yes.
and how's that helping?
I feel bad, to be honest. I feel like I'm not pulling my weight.
Yeah. I didn't mean to laugh because like I can see how if when you receive emotional support, if that makes you feel guilty for not pulling your weight, I can see how that's not really going to charge your battery,
No.
right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Are you an extrovert?
Yes, I am.
You have thoughts?
Oh, well, I have kind of more questions. Like when you hang out with your friends, like do y'all have fun or is it more like talking and dinner? Like, sorry, not that talking and dinner isn't fun, but like do you guys go out and do stuff or do you guys kind of more talk and process and stuff?
With my online relationships, it used to be a lot more talking and processing, but like as of recently, and I've cut out some not great people, it's been more like doing things and having fun and whatnot, which has been awesome. And in person as well, to answer the question.
And how does that help you kind of recharge or are you still emotionally exhausted like after that kind of stuff?
I feel like I'm like recharged, but I still feel emotionally exhausted for like the deeper conversations. Yeah, I don't Yeah.
You feel from the deeper conversations?
To have the deeper conversations. Like I feel like distracted in them. I feel like I'm not there 100%.
Do you want to have deeper
Um
conversations?
yeah, I love like being there for other people. Like it brings me so much joy. And I want to have that again, but it just feels like tiring and like I'm unable to be present.
What do you think?
I think she's tired. I think you're tired, but I don't think it's about, like, it sounds like your social life is going in a fairly good, like, it's going in the direction that you choose. And it sounds like if you want your friendships to be going out, you can have that. If you want to have the deeper conversations, you can have that. If you want to give more, you can. If you want to give less, you can't. So it sounds like you're kind of, it sounds, this sounds like something else is happening, that this isn't about your friendships. It sounds like you're just kind of tired.
Yeah, so
I'd say so.
I would sort of echo that because here's how I'm thinking about it, Sedona, and you let me know if this kind of fits or not. So like, if the primary source of your emotional drain is being a therapist for your friends, if you stop being a therapist for your friends, it should follow that you no longer feel drained, right?
Yeah.
But you've stopped being a therapist for your friends for about 6 months, right?
Mhm.
And you still feel emotionally drained.
Yeah.
So that doesn't make sense to me. I feel like there's something here that's missing. And it could just be more time, like maybe you need another 6 months. But generally speaking, I'd like, I'd think that 6 months after a draining influence is gone, you should be like kind of on the road to recovery there. So a couple of other possibilities could be that there's like other weird stuff going on, like you're carrying around this guilt. Other stuff could be like, do you feel resentful towards your friends and you're sort of carrying that around?
No.
Okay. The other thing that could be kind of bizarre is that so people who are emotionally supportive to others, that can actually be like, so I asked you, do you want to support people? And you were like, yes, absolutely. I love it
Yeah.
so much. And so oddly enough, I wonder if the problem is that like you're not actually able to do something that you find fulfilling, which is like supporting your friends. And this is where like if you think about sort of the life of a therapist, we find our work invigorating because we find it genuinely rewarding, and we also find it draining. So in a weird way, what could be going on is that the way that you recharge it is also by like helping people,
Yeah.
which is bizarre, but that's another possibility. There's just something about this scenario that you're describing where I feel like there's a blind spot somewhere.
Okay.
Also, sometimes one person takes all of our like 90% of our energy is from like one or two
Yeah.
people. Do you have like energy vampires in your life?
I would say so, yes. Well, I had even worse ones, but I got rid of them. Which sounds bad to say, but I did. And I do have some in my family as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's where. So I know it's going to sound kind of weird, but what I would say is, even if you're not fully there, try helping one person one time and see what happens to your battery. Like what you need, I think, is more information, because something
Okay.
about this is. And then the other thing is I mean, if you've got energy vampires in your family that you can't escape from, that's why your battery's drained.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm hearing that you're moving in the right direction, but that you may still have a way to go.
I think that's an accurate description. Yes.
In which case, I'd say just keep on moving. And my condolences that you've had to walk so far so already.
If you enjoy maybe one kind of no strings attached way of like being able to have those conversations and not have any additional baggage would be to like volunteer or like consider coaching or something like that, where maybe you can help other people engage in those conversations but not have an added burden, and then your general relationships can be more reciprocal.
Right.
Then you don't get into like those kind of bad patterns of like giving more, receiving more.
Okay, here, I'm writing it down 1 second so I don't forget.
The last thing that I would mention is that if this persists for a few more months and gets worse, and you find that your battery being drained and you being out of mana is like really starting to cause problems in your life, I'd highly recommend that you get like a medical evaluation or like an evaluation by a psychologist too. So sometimes one of the key hallmarks of something like major depressive disorder is that it's triggered by a particular circumstance, but
Yeah.
persists independent of the circumstance being resolved. Right? So that's just where if you're really seeing like an impairment in function, like, you know, like Kruti's sort of saying, like you may want to look at some kind of outside support, and I wouldn't rule out some kind of medical evaluation as well.
I don't think she needs outside support. I think she should be a coach or like be a crisis text line volunteer, or like if she wants a way to give and know that she's giving but doesn't have like the added baggage of like feeling guilty for not having done more or like that kind of stuff, I think that could be a good outlet for you.
Okay.
Sorry if that was unclear.
Thank you. Yeah.
What are you thinking, Sedona?
I am volunteering at the moment, but I do think that trying to help someone again, and like just do it for once and not have that like strings attachment may give me more information. And I would like to try again. Yeah, I think that's good. And also, I was interested in what you had to say, basis on like one singular moment could cause that major depressive disorder, because I was interested in that. If you wouldn't mind clarifying more what you meant by that.
I'm sorry. Can I clarify? Oh yeah. So if you just you know, just general education about things like major depressive disorder. So the way that we differentiate between, let's say, like stress in your life, like how do we know if you're struggling and that's result to a stress in your life or is due to something like major depressive disorder? So a key aspect is that if something is due to stress in your life, if the stress gets better, your mental health should get better with it, right? Does that
Yeah.
kind of logically follow?
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
one of the key things that we sort of think about in the field of mental health is that if symptoms persist when the stress has resolved, that can be an independent kind of major depressive disorder or something like that. So what I was sort of suggesting to you is that, you know, this may be the kind of situation we have no idea, like, you know, what you're actually experiencing on a day-to-day basis. And that's sort of like on purpose because it's not our job to evaluate you for major depressive disorder. But if you're having, you know, if you're kind of feeling like you're really struggling in some ways and that you're maybe kind of underplaying what you're sharing with us, or it persists for a very long time and your battery should be getting charged and it isn't getting charged, then I would talk to a doctor about that, because that could be all kinds of stuff. It's not even necessarily depression. Like you could have a hormonal imbalance. There could be something like sleep apnea or anemia or like all kinds of stuff that can happen to people. So what I'm saying is that oftentimes people will think, they'll think that, oh, if I'm struggling in some way, like I should change something about my interactions. It's something that I'm doing. It's something that I'm eating. Whereas like sometimes it's just medical and you just need to get some expert advice and support there.
Okay.
Does that offer enough context?
Yes, that makes sense. Thank you.
Good
I
luck to
am
you.
going to. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
I feel
Thank
like we
you,
weren't
both of
able to
you.
give you as satisfactory of an answer.
Yeah,
I think there's a
I
lot of
guess.
specifics under there that we would really have to get into.
I think so too. It's a pretty general question for like, yeah, probably you'd need more context, which would take longer than just this time. But I do appreciate your insight so far.
Yeah, so
Thank
I think
you.
try helping out someone, see what that does. And, if you've got energy vampires in your family, that can be rough.
Yeah.
True. Thank
That
you
can
both.
explain a lot of it. So good luck.
Okay. Have a good rest of your stream and day. Bye.
Thank you. All right, you want to do one more?
Can I just
Oh my God.
have a quick observation?
Sure.
So I feel like a lot of you guys, like everyone we talk to, I feel like if they were in a group together, they would have had a lot of fun together, meeting every week. They would be able to share similar struggles, right? We had 3 or 4 people asking about friendships, coming at it from different angles. How do I make friends? I'm getting cut out from my friends. How do I keep friends? It's hard for me to make friends because of this very specific thing. And so, at the risk of seeming self-serving, this is the beauty of group coaching. And I think when people ask, like, should I do personal coaching or group? This, like, if you can imagine, and I'm watching chat, right? You guys have great ideas. Y'all are funny. And if you could just talk about this with like 5 or 6 randos from chat, like that's what makes group more fun. And that's why I think group is awesome, because you get to hang out with cool people, talk about things in a way that is like relatable, and that you're kind of in that moment too. You have different perspectives and you can get into it.
Yeah, so I don't think it just has to be group coaching, but I think
Sure.
that this is also where, like, we have a lot of stuff on Discord and things like that where people will support each other. I think the
Right.
real advantage of, so I agree with Kruti that relationship related issues are things that, let's just start by saying this. I think relationship issues are things that we manage kind of like instinctually, and there really isn't a good place for you to share what your situation is, and have people be a little bit objective or even challenging or offer you different perspectives. Which I think it's like interesting, because if we look at like problem solving, right? So if I'm trying to get good at a video game and climb MMR, I have a lot of resources and I have a lot of avenues and tools to like be reflective and objective and critical of my play. But we have that kind of infrastructure for friggin' video games. Like, we don't have it for life. And like, how do you make friends? What am I feeling here? What are the different things that I could say? What are different people's experiences? So I think that's really what we try to offer. Now, there's a lot of this, like, and then the issue about group coaching is whether you want to sort of do it formally with a facilitator or kind of go the RNG route, which is Discord. So in terms of Discord, like, if y'all go and hang out on our Discord, there are going to be people that are going to be talking about relationships, supporting each other, things like that. But I don't know that there are a couple of things there where I just don't know that you're going to get consistency, right? So it's sort of like, it's not the same time every week. It's not the same people every week. You'll have opportunities to form real bonds over Discord, which is fantastic. But in terms of group coaching, you're going to have a coach who's a facilitator. So I think the real question is whether you want something like that, where it's like a set group, it's a cohort of people, which sometimes people leave and sometimes people join. But generally speaking, it's a cohort of people that you work on problems with. And then sort of the coach guides you in that exploratory process, which is, has advantages and disadvantages. So that's where I'd sort of offer that caveat there. But I do think that what we tend to see in terms of the data of group coaching is that when people have shared issues, everyone seems to progress on them. And there were even earlier things that we did in terms of sort of like looking at the homogeneity versus heterogeneity of group, and sort of found different kinds of effects. So I think that it's not I kind of agree with what Kruti is saying, but I think that there's group and there's Discord, and it just depends on.
Sure, I mean, do what works for you. But what like, I think a lot of people think that they're going to be the weirdo in group, or they think, what if there is a weirdo in my group, or what if I don't jive with them? And what I'm trying to say is, like, look at the commonality of everything that people have called in have, and like me, all of, like, we've kind of all been there, and that's what I think is kind of cool about group, because it's fun to like be able to do this on a weekly basis and kind of get into things with you guys.
Do you want to do one more, Kruti? Shall we?
Sure, let's do. I mean,
Because there's a bunch of people in the waiting room.
let's
There's no way.
let's try to go faster. Maybe let's try to do a couple, but like quick hits.
Well, we have.
I cleared my. I had a
Okay.
call with like. Anyway, I cleared my afternoon.
Let's go.
Let's
I mean,
go.
I don't want. Okay. Hello.
Hello? Oh, am I in?
Yes, you're
Hello?
in.
God damn. That feels weird. Hello.
Hello. Welcome.
Um, thank you. So I just share now my question?
You please.
Okay, so like 2 years ago, I was in love with this girl. She rejected me. It took me a while to recover, and since then I haven't really felt love. Um, and I don't know if that's normal or not. It's just confusing. Yeah, that's it.
How long has it been?
Um, like a year?
So it sounds like it took you about 1 year to recover. And would you say you're recovered now, but just haven't felt love?
Yeah.
And how had you
And
known the girl that you fell in love with?
we were childhood friends, so a long time, yeah. And yeah.
And it sounds like that person isn't a part of your life anymore.
Uh, no, she actually is. We're friends. I don't have romantic feelings for her anymore, though.
What do you think,
And
Kruti?
I'm really impressed that y'all are still friends. I think that's very cool. You know, to have a childhood friend that you fell in love with and then a year, like, that's a long timeline. So to replicate that exact thing is gonna take a long time. But that's
yeah.
not to. I think it will be a different kind of love that you feel, like,
Towards
when you
different
feel
people?
again.
Yeah, I mean, your question was, is it normal? And I'd say, yeah. I think it's
I mean,
normal to go essentially 1 year and not fall in love with someone. Or,
yeah, yeah.
I mean, are you otherwise like okay in terms of like feeling good about yourself and enjoying spending time with people and things like that?
Kind of, yeah. I've the past year has been rough, but I've been getting better lately, so yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd say, I'm not worried about you in the sense that, and when you say you haven't been able to feel love, I assume you mean like romantic love, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so maybe you're just, you know, I think that's fine. I think that going a year without feeling going a year without falling in love with someone is totally fine.
It's
Are you
probably
like,
healthy.
yeah, because it's people who fall into love, fall in love every 6 weeks that usually have problems.
Yeah, that's the thing, because I constantly see my friends or people around me fall in love and just being in relationships, and I'm just not. And I guess that's what makes me feel weird.
Are you sad? You sound a little sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What makes you sad?
Uh, are you asking me or Kruti?
I'm asking you.
Um, hmm, I don't know, cause I guess I'm lonely in a romantic way.
So what I'm kind of hearing is that you want to be in love.
Kind of. I don't know if I'm ready.
So it's completely normal to want something that you may not be ready for. In fact, that's usually the default human position.
That's the way it goes. I'm sorry you're sad. I'm sorry that it didn't work out with your childhood friend. I think it is
Not
normal,
sad.
but I think. Sorry,
Yeah.
what did you say?
No, I just said yeah. I'm sorry.
Oh, well, I think so one of the questions sometimes becomes like, is sadness depression? And that's, I'm not necessarily trying to introduce like the D word into this conversation, but I think being just sad is something that is can be actionable. Like if you want to not be sad anymore because of the loneliness, I think that um, there's something that can be done there. What do you think?
Yeah. So here's what I'd say. What I'm sort of hearing is, first of all, it's normal for someone to not fall in love within a year, but I think there's more to it than that. So what I'm really hearing from you is that you're looking around at your friends and you're like, everyone else is doing this thing. People are getting in and
Yeah.
out of relationships. It's not even necessarily that they're happy. And also that
Yeah.
you sound kind of lonely. So
Mm-hmm.
when you're watching all your friends get into relationships and you're feeling lonely and you're feeling a little bit sad, like you may think that something is wrong with you, right?
Yeah.
And then maybe
Yeah.
you're kind of like jumbled together, like everything's kind of tangled together on the inside. Like, are you ready for a relationship? Maybe not. Because the last one certainly hurt a lot, right? And took you a year to get over. And you don't know if you've got the HP left to take another one of those hits. And so you kind of hold yourself back a little bit, but then as you hold yourself back, you're kind of like looking at loneliness because you're not really putting yourself out there. And then are you really going to find someone and everyone else is finding someone? And then like you're kind of just like not sure what to do. You can't put yourself out there, but you don't want to stay like this. And then you kind of start to feel stuck. And then you maybe start to feel a little bit pessimistic and not really looking forward to the future. What do you think?
Yeah. Can I just ask what does it exactly mean to put yourself out?
That's a great question.
Definitely.
So, first of all, do you have the opportunity to meet additional people that you could have a romantic relationship with?
Can I bullet point this because I
Sure.
think it might be easier. So to put yourself out there, I think means people, places, and things. So being in a situation where you can meet new, different people, checking out like a lot of times we have like our routine places. Like we always kind of stop at this place for coffee, or we always kind of walk on this route, or this is like my go-to place. But shaking up like your places, and the things is like your activities. So like, you know, I don't know why I keep thinking about tennis, but like maybe because I want to go play tennis. But like if you want to try new hobbies, new activities, things like that, in my opinion, that's kind of what putting yourself out there means. Trying to meet new people, explore new places, try new things.
Y- yeah. Okay. I think that I'm kind of putting myself out. meet new people quite often,
Good.
but I don't know if I just need time to get to know the person to then fall in love with. I don't know.
Sure. Right. So that certainly happened in the first case that we talked about, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So I think
definitely.
that it sounds to me like you should just keep doing what you're doing. Give yourself the opportunity to fall in love. And don't beat yourself up for not finding it, right? Sometimes it just takes time. So sometimes we have to plant 5 or 6 different seeds for one of them to grow into a plant. And so I think what Kruti is talking about in terms of putting yourself out there is just giving yourself opportunities to meet new people, giving yourself opportunities to find emotional connection with people. And then my guess is that as you get to know people, since it sounds like you don't fall in love very easily, which is just because your friends fall in love easily and fall out of love easily, doesn't mean that you want to be doing that. Right? So you're someone who's maybe a little bit more careful, takes a little bit more time, which is totally fine.
It sounds like you also have high expectations.
Maybe,
It's not a bad
maybe,
thing.
yeah,
It's not a bad thing.
yeah, yeah. Thanks for the kind words.
Yeah, good luck, my friend.
Thank you, Dr. K. Love your guys' stuff.
Thank you so much.
Best
Have
of
a
luck,
good
friend.
day.
Thank you, man.
Okay, we probably have time for
Oh.
one more.
Do my signs bother you?
Nope, not at all.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Oh, bye.
Okay, let's.
Hello?
Oh, there we go. Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Chat.
Hi.
Can they hear
Thank
her?
you.
I think so
Can you
because we can see the
both
sound bar
hear
here.
me?
Okay.
Oh,
I hope you're hearing me well. Thank you for having me.
you're very
Thanks for
welcome.
joining us.
My question is very specific. Basically, how do you work on yourself while being in a relationship? And that goes with I recently got diagnosed with DID, so dissociative identity disorder. And I think it makes dating in general way harder because, like,
Certainly.
you have so many quote unquote people that have to like the person you're dating, if that makes sense.
Yep, 100%.
So, yeah, that's like uh, I don't know how something like that would work, or if working on myself uh would be should be prioritized right now,
As opposed to working on what?
as opposed to working or also focusing on finding a partner.
I see. So are you in a relationship right now?
No, I got ghosted, um kind of.
Sad.
So not real, no.
Sorry about that.
I'm not sure what's going on with that dude, so no, currently single.
Okay.
Yeah. So what I'm sort of hearing is like, it's a really good question, which is, how do you know when to prioritize working on yourself versus finding a relationship?
What is can you explain did?
Yeah. Do you want to explain it for us? What your understanding is?
Yeah, sure. Basically, dissociative identity disorder is when you have like severe childhood trauma. So your different parts that are present in childhood cannot fuse with one another because the trauma is like that bad that it keeps you fragmented. So basically, when you get like into a dangerous situation, it's like you um, sort of dissociate, or like you go back and you switch out with someone who can take over the situation better, who can, like, a different alter or personality or headmate, whatever you want to call it. They take over so they can keep you and your body and your mind safe and get you to a safe space.
Okay. I'm really sorry.
Should I take this one or?
Yeah.
So here's what I'd say. So I'd say that generally speaking, I don't know what's the right priority for you, right? So that's something that you sort of have to figure out for yourself. But I can sort of offer some general guidance. So here's, as you pointed out, dating someone with dissociative identity disorder can be quite difficult because you may not sign up to date all of the people that you're dating, right? Like I can be interested in only a part of you or a couple of different parts of you. And it's really, really challenging for the person with DID and for the person who's dating the person with DID. Because on the one hand, if we think about like if I'm dating someone, I kind of sign up for the whole person, right? I sign up for this person when they're angry and this person when they're happy and this person when they're fun and this person when they're annoying. And like I sign up for it all. The challenge with DID is that each of those elements of the self becomes its own personality. So what you get is like you're dating someone who's like much more polarized, right? So there's like there's the alter that you have whose sole job it is to protect you. And so the goal with DID is to take all your alters and essentially integrate them into like one person, or at least that's how I think about the goal. I'm not an expert in DID. And so I think it's what I would sort of recommend is that, first of all, if you've got, a diagnosis that is impacting your relationships, you should absolutely work on that diagnosis. Because the closer that you move to integration, the more that you will be able to handle a relationship and the easier it'll be for someone else to handle a relationship with you. Does that make sense?
It does make sense because um so that guy I was quote unquote dating for a bit, he also has DID, and so I don't know if that was like a key factor to me liking him more. Possible. But in general it was like really hard because when I wasn't fronting, it was like I wouldn't be fronting for like a few days and then I would like miss him. So I think all of us are sort of really clingy onto him.
Yeah. Can you explain what fronting means?
Okay, so fronting is when you're like um in the outer world, when you're like take over the body, um when you're not dissociated, when you're aware of your surroundings, when you feel your body, when you can like, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that the other challenge, so I think you should work on yourself, and the closer you get to integration, the better you'll feel about yourself, and I think the easier it will be to have a successful relationship.
Yeah,
Now,
that
Question.
makes
yeah,
sense.
How old are you?
I'm 24.
24. Okay.
so there are also a couple of other caveats there. The first is that sometimes people with diagnoses like DID or any diagnosis, or even not a diagnosis, just something in their life that they're working on, will feel like they can't date until that is fixed.
Right.
And this is the other thing to keep in mind is that, especially when it comes to diagnoses like DID, it may never be fixed. And so I wouldn't deprive yourself of opportunities just because you are prioritizing working on yourself. So I think it's fine to prioritize working on the DID. I think that sounds very healthy, especially if it's affecting you. And at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, just because you're working on the DID doesn't mean that you should deprive yourself of, like, the opportunity to date or fall in love or form a relationship or things like that. Because I've seen a lot of, very successful relationships with people who have active mental illness. Like it happens all the time. Happens the majority of the time, actually.
Yeah, I think a personal issue for us in general is also like we don't we're very different. We're very different, and so we don't all like the same person.
Yeah,
So
so
it's like for us, sometimes it's like we want to date that. So some of us want to date that person, and some of us want to date this person, and then it's like, oh, we're talking to two people, and that also makes a lot of trauma for us.
yeah, so if that's kind of the case, if giving in to particular alters at particular times is creating a very chaotic and traumatic life, then I think you've got to be
Mm-hmm.
super careful, and then you may not want to date, right? The
Yeah,
the
because it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah, so it's going to be hard on you and it's going to be hard on the other person. So, like, for example, like if you're dating one person who feels a very strong connection with you and they discover that your alters are dating someone else, like they can feel very betrayed by that. And as a consequence of that feeling of
Mm-hmm.
betrayal, can respond to you in a particular way, which then can bring out a different set of alters entirely, right? So you've got to be careful about acknowledging what you're going through and setting yourself up for either success or failure there. The last thing that I'd
That
say,
makes
which is super challenging, is that frequently people who suffer from a particular condition, like an addiction, we see this a lot in addictions, is that they will feel a natural kindredship or connection towards someone else who's struggling with the same thing. So we'll see people with DID who date each other because they each other understand, right? These are alters. And we'll also see that in addictions
Yeah.
where working in drug rehabs, what I found is it's a very, very easy place for patients to fall in love. And just because there
Yeah.
is that connection, just because there is that vulnerability, just because there is that understanding, does not mean that that is the healthiest relationship, even though it feels very comforting, right? Because if you date someone who doesn't have DID or is more neurotypical or whatever term you want to use, like there's such an uphill battle in getting this person to understand. Whereas if you date someone with DID, it's easier. But just because it's
Mm-hmm.
easier doesn't mean that it'll be healthier or easier long term. Because now what you've got is not only the difficulties of working with your own alters in forming a healthy relationship, but now the number of conflicts between all of your alters and all of your partner's alters like becomes exponentially more complicated. Right? So that's where you've just got to be kind of careful there
Yeah.
in terms of it can feel very good. It can feel like they understand you, and they do. And there's advantages to that. And there are people, there are a lot of people that I've worked with that have both struggled with addiction that have formed very, very healthy relationships and have supported each other through their struggles with sobriety in a very positive way.
Can I ask a general question, please? Um,
Yeah.
with DID, does it get like more and less acute, or is it like steady, or does it get better over time with like a certain treatment plan, or like what does the trajectory look like?
So we're currently in therapy
Mm-hmm.
weekly, and my therapist is specialized on DID, so she knows
Awesome.
the alters that I'm aware of. She knows us. She knows uh, how to work with us. So we're working currently on like getting the barriers down and working on internal and external communication with each other. So that's really what I'm focusing on, but there's like also that need of love that I'm kind of missing, and it's hard sometimes to like, okay, I should I know rationally I should focus on like therapy and stuff, but then it's like, yeah, sometimes I just want to I just want someone to love me despite my DID.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I feel like
If that
completely
makes sense.
unqualified to give this, but I do agree with Alok that like it sounds like you kind of have to prioritize yourself. Like that doesn't sound like it sounds like the cost of you not prioritizing yourself could be really detrimental to you. So it sounds like you really should. Um, and that's not mutually exclusive with finding a relationship. So it's almost like the more seriously you take yourself and like what you need and what you want, the more you're going to get the things that you need and want, especially if you have like a therapist that specializes in this, and it sounds like you're doing everything right.
Yeah, I mean, rationally, I think I'm doing everything right, but it's like,
So here,
I think, no, go on.
yeah,
Sorry.
no, so I think that here's another way to think about it. So we're talking about prioritizing yourself, right? But the truth is that you're already taking care of a lot of people. And and so like that's a lot. So think about it. Don't think about it prioritizing yourself versus a relationship. It's like think about all the people that you're taking care of. And then when you say I still need love, of course you do. And so what you should do is take care of the person who needs love. Because that person deserves to be loved. Now, the challenge is that what we tend to see in DID, or in my limited experience with it, is remember that we see like amplifications through these alters, right? So the part of you that needs love is going to need love so much more intensely than sometimes like a more integrated personality would have. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a full-on call out.
And so here's the thing. So you can take care of that need for love in two different ways. One is you can go out and find someone who will give you that love, or you can learn to take care of that person like yourself, right? So that's an alter that needs to be supported by the rest of you. And once you're able to do that, because I think what's going to happen is if you give in to that alter's need by engaging in a relationship, that's going to be like sort of one dimensional because the other person is only engaging in a relationship with that alter. And once the rest of y'all show up, it's like going to be very difficult. So
Yeah.
that's where you have to learn how to meet that emotional need more internally, right? And I think the more that you're able to do that, the more that that alter feels like it doesn't need to go to an external person to be loved, I think the more stable you'll be.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
But it ain't easy.
It's not. It's never easy, right?
Well, you know, what's that that lyric from Coldplay?
Nobody ever
Said it was easy, but nobody ever said it would be this hard. So my heart goes out to all of you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
That was very. Sorry.
I was gonna say
That was.
thank you for joining us, and like it's a new concept I think for a lot of us. So I appreciate you kind of helping educate all of us about it.
Oh, I love it. Since I got my diagnosis, we have a very active thread going on actually on your server, and yeah, I love talking about it because
Sure.
it's like we found also other systems, and it's nice to know that you're not alone with this.
100%. Take care and good luck.
I will. You too, guys.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Okay, so I think that's all the time we have for today. I'm going to just go ahead and disconnect from Discord. So I think we have a couple of announcements before we wrap up. But Kruti, do you have thoughts about today?
I just love everyone and I want everyone to be happy.
Yeah, I echo that. I really appreciate you keeping me in check because I was out there giving some pretty bad advice.
No, I don't think it was bad advice. I think it was emotional advice. And I think it's good to remember that sometimes the impulse and the emotional response isn't the smart response.
I've also noticed that when you're around, I let myself go a little bit.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah. So I think we've got a couple of quick announcements.
Well, I saw a couple questions in chat that like I feel I've never had to do a disclaimer before, but I am not a therapist. Nothing I say is medical advice or qualified advice or anything. This is just I don't know, wisdom, I guess, from my many years. Wisdom. Yeah. I've been in coaching. I have 2 coaches actually, and I have experience like being a therapy patient, I guess. But I'm not like I've only ever been on the receiving end.
Cool. All right. So announcements. So we have new merch, which hopefully y'all can see. I think I like our current version of merch a lot.
Super comfy.
Yeah. So if you guys are interested, there's a command !merch. In May is Mental Health Awareness Month, so just a reminder that all of the subs and donations are going to go to the Healthy Gamer Foundation. So !MHM to get a link to that.
Some really cool announcements coming, by the way, about the foundation. We're really excited. We just kicked off with our new board, and I can't wait to announce them to you guys, but very excited about the agenda for the foundation.
Couple of other things going on Discord. So we have a May You Sleep Well event going on that in which we help people develop healthy sleep schedules. So a lot of being physically healthy, mentally healthy just starts with sleep. So getting on a good sleep schedule is really crucial. It's the time that your mind heals itself or brain heals itself. You clear out all these waste products like adenosine and stuff like that, turn that back into ATP for those of y'all who are biochemistry nerds. The other thing that I sort of remember learning is when I was in med school, I remember thinking it's really interesting because disturbed sleep is the most uniform symptom of psychiatric diagnoses. So if you the most common symptom across all diagnoses is messed up sleep. So PTSD has messed up sleep, depression has messed up sleep, addictions have messed up sleep, bipolar disorder has messed up sleep, so healthy sleep is really, really important to just being healthy. So if y'all need help getting on your sleep, getting your sleep schedule in order, check out the May You Sleep Well event. So there are lectures every Tuesday at 9 a.m. Other things that we're doing are helping y'all clean your rooms because people are degenerates, and I'm one of them. Y'all can see all of this stuff, but you don't see the mess that's just out of camera range.
So bad. There's so much clutter right outside of this
getting
field
better.
of vision.
But so we have dedicated hours to clean your room Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. We also have study together bot hosted lobbies for people who are interested in developing good study habits. We've got events on career mindset and networking that are every Thursday and Friday. The schedule's on our Discord. And we've got bot guided meditations for things like focus, ADHD, and more stuff coming soon. So I think our Discord is super poppin' nowadays.
Thanks to our mods and Tech Teller, big shout out to you for keeping everything running on Discord. Lots of new fun stuff there, and I love that. I love that you guys can kind of continue to hang out together and work on this stuff.
And apologies to everyone. I see that there's 40 people, in the waiting room for who wanted to ask questions. We really apologize that we weren't able to get to everyone. We struggle with trying to give people sort of more in-depth responses versus balancing getting to as many people as we can. And so we really hope that we'll be able to get to y'all at some point. Just a reminder that we have a lot of other places that y'all can ask questions.
Kit Boga, thank you for the raid.
Oh, Kit Boga.
Hey, welcome.
Dude, I just saw an awesome clip of, I guess you cashed some like $500 thing on Google Play, and someone was like freaking out. Thanks for the raid.
I guess
What?
I feel like we have to do a couple more questions if we've got
well-
new company. Welcome. It's Mental Health Awareness Month, Kit Bogas.
Sure. So if we've got, I guess if y'all showed up, so let's explain, and then we'll do like maybe 1 or 2 questions, okay? All right, so we're going.
We're doing viewer call-ins.
The Kit Boga raid. So welcome.
Do your disclaimer.
Yeah, welcome everyone to the Healthy Gamer stream. My name is Alok Kanoja. A reminder that although I'm a psychiatrist, nothing we discuss on stream is intended to be taken as medical advice. Everything is just for educational and entertainment purposes only. We're huge fans of Kit Boga here. Think it's awesome what he's doing in terms of entertaining and hopefully making the world a slightly better place. And today we're doing a relationship call-in stream. So
I'm Mrs. K. I'm not normally here. This is just my special fun day. I am not a therapist. Nothing I say is even good advice.
So
we'll just see.
We're talking about, we have people from our community who are just asking questions, and we're having like brief conversations about relationship dilemmas, romantic relationships, friendships, even parental relationships and things like that. So we're all here to just learn a little bit about relationships. So let's see have I screwed it up? Okay, no. Tech Teller is here. Okay, let's do like 2 more.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, hello.
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 So nice to meet you, Dr. K. I'm from Mexico. I have 24. I have a question.
Go ahead. Nice to meet you too.
Thank you. Recently I dated a girl. She was going through a lot of stuff. She was working like 26 hours a day. She was also, well, with COVID and everything, their parents fired her from her house. Sorry for my bad English.
That's okay. I think we understand you.
Okay. And yeah, when they fired her from her house, I was there with her. I was like being supportive because we were trying to build a relationship. And on that time, we used to have something. And well, she was not feeling too well, and she told me that she needed some space. So everything stopped, and we didn't talk for quite a while. And now, after like 3 months of that, she um, looked for me again to try to have something, and we spoke about it. I told her how I felt. I told her that a relationship wasn't easy, and well, we had a quite a long chat. But since then, she has been acting really weird. Like she doesn't care about what I have to say. She only talks about herself. She like she works, and I feel like she only uses me to maybe give her a ride on the motorcycle. Like pretty much, I feel like I'm being used. If that makes sense. Because yeah, when she's feeling bad, she talks to me, and when she's not feeling bad, she like it's like I don't even exist. So I actually like her. I actually have feelings for her, and I know, or at least I used to know, that she has feelings uh, for me, because back in the day when we had something, it was very good. I felt a connection that I like I only felt once with one person, and I have been in 3 or 4 long relationships. So yeah, I'm not sure if I explained.
Yeah, I think you can. I go ahead and summarize, and then you can tell
Yep,
me if we sort of understood properly. So it sounds like you were
yep.
dating someone. How long were y'all dating?
It was really short actually. It was more less than a month
I see.
because all the problems. Yeah,
And then the problems happen. She gets kicked out of her house, so she's no longer able to live with her parents. Is that right?
correct.
And then
Yes,
you tried to be emotionally supportive. She was working a lot, needed to find a new place to live. So it sounds like y'all took a break for a few months,
yep,
and then she reached back out. But since she's reached back out, your relationship feels very one sided. So you provide a
exactly.
lot of support, and when she doesn't kind of need you anymore, she doesn't really respond to you or things like that.
Yeah, exactly like that. Mhm.
Yeah, so I think you did a fantastic job explaining yourself, and I think your English is excellent.
Thank you very much.
Kruti, do you have thoughts?
Want to stay in this relationship?
Yeah. Actually, I have been thinking a lot about it because I know it's like not normal, and sometimes it feels like it's a toxic relationship. And I've been thinking about why, and I think I find her to be a very vulnerable person. And she has been diagnosed with depression and ADD. Um, but sometimes she's like the cutest person, like the happiest person. So she has like really good moments, and sometimes she's like everything is going to hell, like very, very negative person. And I consider myself to be a very positive person, a very, well, not sure if healthy is the right word, but I think that, or well, I wish I was able to help her uh, in some way. I offered her my friendship, just the friendship, but she, like, I don't know, she's confused about what she wants. So yeah, that's why I want to be on the relationship, and I've
So,
been try harding.
yeah, it sounds like you're trying really hard, and it sounds like she's actually very lucky to have you in her
Yeah.
life.
Why did her parents kick her out?
Well, when she was working, she is pastry maker, I think is the word on English. Um, she was working, and someone on the work got diagnosed with COVID, and their parents are very paranoid with COVID, so they thought that she might get COVID and, well, infect them. So yeah,
That's rough.
she had to leave.
And how long has it been since?
Confused. And then she couldn't move back?
No, she has never come back. Well, obviously she still talks to them, but no, she lives on her own now.
And how long? So you said that after a period of 3 months, she reached out to you, and y'all have sort of you offered her friendship, but it sounded like she wanted a relationship. So y'all are in a relationship now, but the relationship just feels one sided.
We're not in a relationship. So the thing is, after she told me that she wanted to be in a relationship, something really bad happened. Someone abused her on her work, and after after that, obviously, well, it's a very hard thing to do to cope with. So I understand that it has been very one-sided because of it, or well, at least I think so. And I knew how she works or what happens to her when something goes wrong, you know? Um, so
So
I'm really not sure.
yeah. So here's
Uh,
Kruti. Do you have thoughts?
I have a lot of questions, but I have a feeling behind every question I'm going to have more questions.
Yeah.
That's my exact feeling with her.
Yeah.
So I was sort of thinking the same thing too, which is that so I can see how this relationship is very complicated, right? There's so many different layers to it. There's not just the relationship that you have with her, but the way that outside things affect her and impact y'all's growing relationship. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So what I'm sort of hearing is that y'all can work towards a relationship. Let's just assume for a moment that you are working towards a relationship. And she's cute and amazing and funny and all that kind of stuff. But then like some external factors happen and will sort of like mess up your relationship. Is that fair?
Right. I don't think it's fair, but it happens.
No, I mean, fair meaning, is that accurate? Is that what usually?
Oh yeah.
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 So
Sorry.
I think, my friend, what you have to do is figure out what amount of patience you have left in you. Because what I'm hearing is that she's not in a circumstance or in a mental state to devote time to building a relationship. Because what happens is she can put her energy into the relationship theoretically, but then if something happens at work or something else happens, like her inability to be stable herself is going to make it very hard for the relationship to succeed. What do you think about that?
I agree totally, and I'm aware of it, and I also have spoke to her about that. I have told her that yeah, if you don't want a relationship, just let me know. You know, I'm okay with being your friend. I'm okay with being supportive. I'm okay with being there if you need me. But the thing is that I don't know if she's confused or if she doesn't want to have to deal with the relationship or even with me.
I,
Because at times I feel like she doesn't even like me or love me. I don't know. So yeah.
I feel like as a woman, I feel like I might know what's happening. You're there for her on her terms. When she needs you, you're there. When she doesn't need you, you give her space and you're supportive. When she needs space, you give her space. And so whatever she wants from you, you get, or she gets.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
you want from her, I don't think you get. So I don't
No,
know if you've told her what you want, or I don't know if you have told her what you want and you're not getting it.
yes, I have told her. I have spoke my mind like 2 or 3 times, like totally, and she does know. She does know what I want. So
I think this is a situation where there's no consequences. Um, and I think
Can you explain that a little bit more?
well, if you tell her this is what I want and you don't get it, you're still there. So, she can still do what she wants to do or not do what she doesn't want to do. But, let's give her the benefit of the doubt. I don't think she's a bad person. I don't think she's, trying to be evil or anything like that.
right.
But I just don't think she's in a good place to be a good partner.
Yeah, so what I was going to say is so I can see that it's really confusing for you, right? So when you tell her what you want, what does she say?
She just says, "Look, I don't know what to say to you at the moment," or "I will have to think about that," or she just looks at me and she like wants to cry but doesn't say anything.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
let's assume for a moment that she does not want a relationship with you. Do you think she would be able to tell you?
I don't think so.
So I think that's what we're seeing, right? So what I'm guessing is that first of all, I don't think she's like in a good place for a relationship. Secondly, I think that she may want a relationship on some level, but what I'm pretty sure she wants to want to have a relationship with you. She wishes she could just say yes, but she absolutely can't say no. Even if the answer is no, she's not going to be able to tell you no. So every time you ask her, you're not trying to force her into a relationship. You're just looking for clarity. You just want to know, like, pick A or pick B. Because, like, in the middle, it's confusing and it's driving me crazy.
Yep.
But the problem is that she's afraid that if she says the wrong thing, that you're going to leave. Right? And
Right, but I have assured her that I won't leave no matter what, because that's the kind of person that I am.
and it's nice that you've done that, and maybe that is what's making it so much harder for her, right? Because if you're such a good guy and you'll leave no matter what, and you ask her if she wants a relationship, she should say yes. Does that make sense? Because
Yeah.
how is she going to find someone better? But the problem is that she can't say yes right now, but she really wants to, or she should say yes. And the fact that you're such an awesome guy, like, she doesn't want to say no. But the fact that you haven't gotten a clear yes, I think to me is an answer. I think her behavior is an answer. So you know what the answer is. And this is the kind of thing where I'm not saying you should abandon her or anything like that. But at the same time, like, I don't think she's just and she's even sort of told you that to a certain degree, right? That I can't give you an answer right now, or I have to think about it. So I think this is where it just depends on your patience. But I would not expect a relationship from her anytime soon.
Okay. So just to finish, she when she looks for me, should I just like ignore her, or should I tell her that I want to be like, yeah, like I don't want to have to be with her because of the expectations that I might have and the expectations that she might have?
Rather
You know what
be
I
her
mean?
friend, or would you rather be her boyfriend?
I mm, I think being her friend is okay
Okay.
at this point.
Okay. If you want to be her friend, be her friend. And I would say don't look to her to be your girlfriend. So that way you don't have to worry about the back and forth. Just, I think, be friends if you can. If you honestly can just be friends, I would continue to be a good friend.
Yeah, and I mean, if you've already told her that you're going to be there for her no matter what, I think you should do your best to honor that. And at the same
Right.
time, I would also, I think but if you are her friend, you should not do more for her than what a friend would do.
Just be her friend.
Right? So, like, this is the kind of thing where it's like, if you've got a date on Friday night with another girl and your friend calls you and says, hey, I'm having a really tough day, you can say, hey, I'm sorry to hear that. I'm busy tonight. Can we talk tomorrow?
Right.
Right? So I would set limits with her. That does not come at the cost of yourself. But if you've committed to being her friend, then by all means be her friend.
Pretend she has a beard. Don't do anything you wouldn't do for somebody with a beard.
Okay. That makes sense.
All right, friend. Good luck, and she's lucky to have you in her life.
Thank you, Dr. Stay. Thank
Proud
you,
of
Kruti.
you.
Thank you. Have a good
You
day.
too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Alrighty, so I think we've got time for one more. Let's go. Let's go.
I could do this all day.
I know, but I have.
You have things to do.
I
I
have work.
cleared my afternoon.
Hey, Dr. K. Hey, Kruti.
Hey.
Nice hearing from you.
Too.
Likewise.
So, I get this problem that the more I'm in a relationship, the more I lose myself and all I stand for. Like, after some months, I get anxiety and I feel like I suffocate the other person with my love. And I feel miserable and completely forget about myself and my life. and the other person normally like starts to avoid me or like drift away slowly from me. And after that, after the relationship, like at the beginning, I'm super confident and like I love myself. And after a certain time, I get like addicted to the love. And after the relationship, I feel completely broken and like a shell of my former self. And like my relationship ended like 2 weeks ago, and it was for 10 months. And I had to break up because I couldn't like take it anymore.
You had to break up with her?
Yes, I had to
With,
break
or
up.
him?
Yes. Yeah, I had to break up with her. Yes.
And what couldn't you take anymore?
So she started to avoid me on the weekends or on the like at sometimes I got like COVID and then we didn't see each other obviously during my COVID time. And then I was like, yes, I'm lonely and I need people and something like that. And then she didn't make time for me for another 2 weeks, where she was like, no, I'm at my family's, I'm there. Then we saw each other for one day. And after that, I'm like, yeah, do you want to do something on next Saturday? And she was like, yeah, of course. And then after like 3 to 4 days or something like that, she wrote me a really long text message about her needing space and her like needing some distance and that she can't on Saturday and that she thought about it, but she thinks that if she forces herself to like meet me, that this is very wrong. And I was very heartbroken by that. And then I saw that on Friday, like the day before Saturday, she went out with a friend of her. And the next week, she went out with another friend of hers. And then I was like, I can't take it anymore.
Sure.
Because I was just so incredibly miserable about myself. I was like, what's going on? So I was like, no, I can't. Like I was sleeping 6 hours a day maximum, anxious every day. I was done with my life. Like the relationship grew to be my life because I just sacrificed everything of mine. And then I saw that she like didn't really want to meet me anymore.
Can you explain more? I mean, I'm really sorry you're in this situation. I have a few questions.
Yeah, of course.
When you say you sacrificed everything about your life, what does that mean?
It's not like a sacrifice, but I lost sight of it. So I have this problem that I don't care about my hobbies or like what I stood for or like the things I'm interested in to do in the future anymore or my studies or something like that. Like I like I completely my life changes. Like the more I'm in the relationship, I completely change as a person, I feel like. And I don't know how I stop myself from it because I like lose my confidence. I start doubting myself every day. I just can't function anymore. And the only thing that keeps me happy is the relationship. And this was just, and I knew that it wasn't like all her fault that the relationship should stop, but I didn't know what to do anymore because there were times where I like thought like 8 hours straight about the relationship day after day because I was obsessed or like addicted to it and I didn't know how to stop it anymore. Like
Yeah.
I was just lost.
You have thoughts, or you want me to go?
I think this is much more your wheelhouse, but my only real thought is I see so many people in chat saying that they relate to this or that you're doing the right thing. So I just want you to know that you're not alone,
Yeah.
and that this happens to people. Go ahead.
So let me ask you. So you start out confident, right?
Yes.
And then help me understand if you know, because you may not.
Yeah.
What starts to change? What does that look like? Can you think of like, let's say 1 month into the relationship, 2 months into the relationship, and be as specific as you can. Like what starts to change in your behavior, in your thoughts, in their actions? What changes? Do you know?
Yeah. So I get this sense of approval at the beginning for everything I do. And then I like start to chase it or start to like adopt behavior, different behavior. And I was like, where I'm like, yeah, I need to say this or I need to say that, where I don't really like, I just lose myself. I don't know what really happens. I just see that every time like the person is busy or something like that, I'm like really anxious, ambivalent. Like I watched that video about it, and I saw that I'm really like down on myself, and I'm frustrated and angry, and then I feel dumb about feeling angry. So I don't know what's the thing in me that makes me go from like confident and like chill out and fun to be with to just absolutely miserable. I don't know
So
how to stop it.
yeah, so
Yeah.
So I have some thoughts. So the first thing that I want to say is I want to commend you for being as insightful as you are. I really think you've given us a lot of very important details here. So I'm going to try to explain what I don't really know, right? Because I've heard this for like 5 minutes,
Yeah.
but at the same time, I feel like I've got a good instinct for what's going on. So let's first start looking at it from her perspective. So, and what should I call you, my friend?
You can call me Kevin.
Okay. So along comes Kevin. Kevin has hobbies. Kevin is interested in life.
Yeah.
Kevin is confident and handsome. And so some girl sees you and she's like, wow, like look at this human being who's so full of life. And then y'all start dating and you're like really awesome and you do all this cool stuff. And then something starts to change where like Kevin stops focusing on his hobbies. Like, so something happens where she has to cancel one day. And instead of like spending the weekend being Kevin and hanging out with your friends and being confident and doing your things, what happens is the next time she sees you, she sees like a haunted look in your eyes, like an intensity. Like it's not confident Kevin anymore who spent the weekend doing fun stuff because he's got hobbies that he enjoys. It's Kevin who spent 8 hours thinking about her and sleeping only 6 hours a night. And then what happens is Kevin is kind of like pretending that didn't happen and is terrified of that kind of happening again. And then you start to treat her a little bit differently. But the initial stuff that attracted her to you in the first place is like decreasing. And the less attracted to you she becomes, the more she starts to pull away, the more of yourself you lose. And it becomes a vicious cycle. And now she's got COVID for 2 weeks, and it's a relief for her
I had COVID.
because she's got an excuse to not see you. And then a week goes by, and then you try to be patient with her. But the worse this gets, like the more you lose yourself trying to get her back. And the more that you do that, the further away you become from the person that she was attracted to in the first place. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it makes perfect sense because people always told me like, why are you like this anymore? Like at the beginning or when you're not having a relationship, you're so confident and happy with life and you have plans. And like after 6 months or like 8 months in a relationship, I'm just done.
How many times has this happened?
3 times.
Wow.
Yeah.
And this one was 10 months and the previous one was?
Nearly 1.5 years, and at that time she broke up.
Okay. And then all kind of long-term relationships?
Longer time relationships, yeah. So yeah.
I'm sorry, she asked.
I'm 24.
24, okay.
Okay. Yeah.
And how long between your relationships?
2 years was between the second and the third.
Okay.
And,
So just long enough for him to put himself back together and attract someone else, right?
Yeah. It's really because as a relationship for me it feels like a mental stress test.
Yep. So we're gonna
it's absolutely
we're gonna help you with that, Kevin. So
Thank you.
Here's what I think is going on. So like when you start the relationship, I think your mind is particularly sensitive and over interprets particular kinds of almost like micro abandonments. So I don't know if that's a real word or not, but like I think you start out confident, and then as you said, like you become addicted by this person, right? So you've got some like emotional need that this person then fulfills. And it sounds almost like a story with addiction, where like you'll sacrifice anything. You just want her to show up. And so what probably is happening is that there's some kind of micro insult or micro abandonment. So 2 months in, 3 months in, 4 months in, she'll do something that makes you feel like she doesn't care about you anymore, that you don't feel loved anymore, that you feel like something is really like wrong with you, or like there's something going on. But my guess is that it's relatively small. The problem is that whatever that is, like she has to cancel plans at the last minute or something like that. And then you feel like whatever you're addicted to has been like taken away. And then all you know is that this thing that you love, can you stop? All you know is that we're trying to help someone here.
I know. I'm really
Okay.
excited for Kevin. We're doing it.
We're
We're
gonna
doing it. We're gonna get
So after this micro abandonment, you have this reaction. And the reaction is that like you want it back. You want things to be like back to where they were 2 weeks ago, when she was there for you and she gave you what you needed and she didn't leave you waiting, and she didn't leave you waiting for affection. And then as you start to feel that, you start to spiral. And then what happens, the reason you lose yourself is because you're willing to sacrifice anything to get that back. And then what happens is you start problem solving in your head. If I would have done this, what should I have done this? Does she think this? And the more that you analyze it, the more you're trying to figure out what is the pathway to get back to her, like giving me that thing that I'm addicted to. And I don't even know that it's clear to you like what it is, but I get the sense that there's like a core emotional need that they're giving you by showing up and by treating you a particular way. And then you just love it so much. You're so addicted to it. And then the problem is that you start to get clingy. And then as you get clingy, they start to pull away. And as they start to pull away, it gets worse. You're now thinking 10 hours a day about it. You're sleeping 4 hours a night. You just want it back. You want it back. You want it back. But at that point, you're no longer yourself, and you're not even trying to engage in a relationship with her. It's this weird, like, complex from before that you're trying to satisfy. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yes.
So
Yes.
then the question is what to do about it. So this is where I'm going to give you a short-term solution and a long-term solution, okay? The short-term solution is in your future relationships, look out for the micro-abandonment. Look out for the thing that starts the cycle of the decline in the relationship. Because chances are it's so small that you are going to invalidate it for yourself. So like you're going to feel disproportionately hurt by something that she did. And you're going to feel like it's unfair for you to blame her for that because it's not really her fault. But the hurt is going to be real, even though it's sort of out of proportion. But unless you see that and process that emotional hurt on your end, and I'm not saying even that you need to have a conversation with her about it, you just need to be aware of it. Because the problem is if that hurt or that sense of abandonment starts to take over your actions and your behaviors, if you don't address it, then it'll start to seep in. It'll start to pollute your interactions with her. And if that happens and you start to get clingy, then like it's just going to grow over time. Because then every time she like messes something up, and this is why I think it takes like 6 to 8 months, because in 6 to 8 months, someone is going to like forget to show up at some point, right? She's going to be late, or she's going to forget that her friend is coming into town and she's going to cancel with you last minute, or she's not going to return your texts. Like 3 months, 4 months, like it's kind of okay. But like by 6 or 8 months, like people are going to start screwing up in relationships. The problem is that screw up, which is completely normal and she should apologize for or whatever, is going to hurt you disproportionately and start this whole cycle up again. So look for the micro abandonment and don't let it control you. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense, yeah. I think I can work with that very well. And in like a couple of days, we haven't talked since I broke up, because I was like, I'm not ready for a conversation, because I really feared of like getting hurt even more, because like I can't do this anymore. And she was very, very angry at the moment I broke up with her. And we haven't talked in between that, and I don't know what to say. like I don't want to come across as pathetic or miserable, but I feel pretty pathetic and miserable right now. Like I don't know what to do at this point where I'm really don't feel like good about myself. Like I don't like, how do I like communicate to her that, like, there's I'm getting really, really hurt by really small things. You know, like I broke up because I was just done. Like I couldn't take the stress and anxiety anymore. And like I probably hurt her a lot because she was like, "Yeah, you promised me a future and everything about that." But I felt so hurt by her and like betrayed and everything. So I didn't know what to do, and I don't want to come across as clingy anymore or pathetic or
So
something.
so I know it's going to sound weird, Kevin, but I think that's sort of in a weird way exactly what you should say. And let me just modify it a little bit, okay? So I think what you should, if you want to, by the way, you don't have to do this, but if you were going to share that, saying I feel so pathetic is sort of true, but makes you come across as kind of pathetic. So what I would really emphasize is something about this relationship. I saw myself becoming something that I don't want to be. Like when we started this relationship, I was confident. I really enjoyed spending time with you. But over time, I noticed that something about either circumstances or the way that you were treating me was making me feel pathetic about myself. And then what would happen is those feelings of being pathetic would destroy my confidence and then cause me to respond to you in an unhealthy way. I would start to get clingy. And then when you kind of weren't there for me and like, you said you needed space, which like I should be able to tolerate, it just became way too painful for me. It just became incredibly stressful. I'm not saying it's actually like your fault. And like, these are things that I'm working on. What I struggle with is that there are two Kevins, and one is one that I've grown to be proud of. The problem is that sometimes this other Kevin like takes over, and something about your behavior is like triggering that Kevin. And that's not the person that I want to be. And that's what I need to work on. It's just, it was too emotionally painful for me to want to see you and be told time and again that you were not available and that you couldn't make time for me. That's how it felt. Now, I understand that you need space and you have emotional needs too, and I actually totally respect that. I was just in a place where I was just suffering so much that I couldn't take it anymore. And I apologize if that feels like a betrayal to you, and if that hurts you. It hurt you, it clearly did. I can see that. I was going through a lot as well, and I think I need to work on this. Right? I need to like try to figure out like why I respond this way. It doesn't make me happy, and it's not necessarily fair to you. And I'm still struggling to understand like how much of this is, because you don't want to take full responsibility for it. I'm still trying to understand how much of this is coming from me, and also how much of it is potentially legitimate, where we've been in a relationship for 10 months. I haven't seen you in a month, and you choose to spend time with other people instead of me. So how many of my needs are legitimate, and what amount of this is like unfair to you? I'm still trying to work through that. How does that feel to listen to? Do you feel like the person who says those kinds of things is pathetic and clingy?
Not at all, no.
Right? So you should own it, but recognize that you're not pathetic and clingy. That you can work on the feelings of being pathetic and clingy without being a person who is pathetic and clingy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The other long-term thing that you've got to do is try to figure out like where this fear of abandonment came from.
Oh, that's not that hard. I'm going to therapy in like a couple of days. Like I know where it's coming from, but I need some therapy for that one.
Perfect.
Like
so I really commend you for that, Kevin, because I think the other thing is that so you can work in the microscopic way, like so watch out for the micro abandonments if you date again. I'm really happy you're going to therapy. I think that's the right move for you. And as you work through the source of that core unmet need, the micro abandonment will become weaker. You'll still see it because at this point your neurons are like kind of wired that way. But the good news is that neurons can rewire, right? I may be right-handed and write with my right hand, but if something happens to my right hand, I can learn how to write with my left. It's going to take a little while. So it's going to take you a little while to recondition yourself. And therapy is a huge step in that direction. And then the last thing is that
I'm looking.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm looking very forward to that. It's just, when do I know my feelings are right? Because subjectively, I don't really have like a meter for when is my feeling of abandonment or my feeling of hurt like justified. Like I don't like, how do I know that? Because I don't want to like take everything, but I don't want to like like where do I know that this is not okay?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm really proud of you because I think you are you're like checking all the boxes. You're self-aware. You broke up. You realized you couldn't take it anymore. You're in therapy. You're working on this, and your core question is, why does this happen to me, and how do I not do this again? Right. So you're the only kind of thing that I want to kind of interject in this is like, a year from now, you're gonna be a Chad again, and that's when I want you to kind of be the most careful about which relationship you get into next, because relationships are supposed to make you better. They're supposed to make you a better person. They're supposed to like let you do all of the things that you want to explore. They're supposed to like, make you more than who you are. They're not supposed to make you less. And so I would really like, do you feel like there's a personality trait or anything in common that your previous partners have? Or any like common patterns? If you, I don't need to know what they are, but like just please watch out for that type of personality trait.
I think that narcissism is something I saw in some of them. That I was like, everything is about them. They like look about what they come across a lot and look about their feelings and don't really consider my emotional needs. And I feel like after most relationships, I feel pretty used. I feel like, okay, like I spent months and months of caring for them and caring for their depression or their anxiety or their, like I buy flowers for them, or I really try to do everything. And then when I'm like kind of feeling pathetic or like kind of having a hard time, like they avoid me. And that's just, the pain was just unbearable of being like, okay, like I cared for you for like 10 months and now I'm feeling bad and you're like leaving me. Like,
Yeah.
so
It's got to be devastating to
really hard.
care for someone for 10 months and then not even see you over the course of 1 month when they could, right? But they're just choosing not to.
Yeah. That was just all right.
And so I think that sense of abandonment probably comes from their choices, which is what really bothers you. Is that when you have needs and they choose not to meet them.
Yeah. Because I was like, I'm lonely and I need someone. And
I was there for you, but why aren't you there for me?
Yeah, that's the thing that bothered me the most. Or like doing like vacation plans with other people. And I was like, I'm your boyfriend. Why aren't you doing vacation plans with me? Like, and I always look at myself and think like, what's wrong with me? Like, I feel like I put everything into it, and there's something wrong with me where they don't want to do this with me. Like, I feel like they want to be loved by me, but they don't want a relationship with me. And that's the most hurtful thing where I'm like, they want to be all these great things about me where I like care about them and I'm emotionally there for them and I care. And when I come to like, okay, like let's do this relationship things, like go to vacation with each other, like there's no input. There's like, okay, then I have to care about the meetups and like the relationship becomes very one-sided. And I I don't know, like yeah.
Yeah, so I think that definitely, I mean, hopefully you'll do that work in therapy, but I think that seems to me like, that whole cycle of what's wrong with me, why doesn't someone choose to be with me and instead chooses to be with someone who's better than me? What, like, that whole thing is like absolutely a samskar, right? It's
Yeah.
sort of this. And just to kind of answer your other question, how do you know when it's in your head and appropriate, and how do you know when someone is really being unfair to you, and how do you know
Yeah.
when you're sort of subjectively like reading into things? The short answer is with practice, is number one. Number two is with external measurement, right? So this is where, like, as you work with a therapist or as you develop a relationship with someone, they'll help you understand what the distortions of your mind are. And once you kind of understand what those are, then you'll be more equipped with it. This is also why I'm warning you to look out for the micro abandonment, because I'm already anticipating that
Okay.
that's going to be like, it's going to be like somewhat circumstantial. They're not going to purposely do something to reject you, but it's going to start small and you're going to interpret a rejection out of chance. So that's where you've got to be super careful. And long term, the basic issue with thinking is that it's subjective. So this is where the less your ego is active, the more likely you are to be thinking clearly. So I don't know if you've seen the Vedic psychology portion of Dr. K's guide, or you've watched things that we...
Yeah, I do. I did the self-care meditation. That's when I need, like the one where you have 5 people that you wish happiness and freedom and some other thing too. And where you get to yourself and you learn to be compassionate with yourself. Like I did that, and that's when I knew, like I did that a bit of 1 month ago, I started with it. And that's how I knew like I had to get out of the relationship, because I was just not, I needed to do something good for myself.
Good.
So I really am into meditation.
Good. So that's where I would say in general, the more your ego is active, the more your ego controls your reasoning. Okay? So if we think about and that's where like the more you can sort of take a step back from your ego, the better the more clear your thoughts will be. So if someone at work tells me that I'm doing a bad job, and then I start to think, oh, this person is so cruel, they're racist, they don't like my religion, the more that I attribute what they're doing to like my ego and aspects of myself, like the more I'm thinking about I, the more likely my thoughts are to be wrong. And so that's where like, when I really like, I sort of take what they say seriously, I sort of take it into consideration. And the more that ego is out of the picture, the more likely you can trust your thoughts. But that's a long process. And that's where the other thing to remember is that ego is a protector of the mind. So when you feel negative emotions, your ego is going to activate to protect you from them. And so that's where like it's tricky, but if there's this relationship between manas, buddhi, and ahamkar, which the more you sort of work on that, like the more you meditate and things like that, the better you'll be able to sort of tell when your ego is active. And the thoughts that come from your ego are going to be like the wrong thoughts. And then one last thing just to leave you with is that you sort of mentioned that you kind of like reach for potentially people who are a little bit narcissistic. So that's very common, by the way. So when some of us feel not worthy, we actually select for people who are a little bit narcissistic. So people who are clingy or dependent will sometimes reach for people who are narcissistic and self-centered. And there's something about that probably mirrors like some kind of like the person who made you feel clingy in the first place was narcissistic. So that's a game you know how to play. Like it's very familiar to you. The tricky thing is that the flip side is also true. If you look at someone who is narcissistic, what are they going to say about the people around them? They don't think about me, they only think about themselves. right? So that's just something else that you can like, since Kevin, you're just so damn insightful. I'm leaving you with a couple things that you can sort of think about. And I'm confident that if you work with a therapist and you just continue on your journey, like these are things that you can sort of explore and try to really understand a little bit about, okay, like what's really going on here.
Can I ask just like one, because I'm thinking about Kevin 10 months from now. How do you spot a narcissist? Like can you tell us a little bit about like
How
some
do
red
I
flags?
like generally right now?
Oh, no, I was asking more Alok, but if you have some signs.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Sorry, you muted. Go ahead.
Do you have signs, Kevin, for like how to spot a narcissist?
Well, probably that they talk bad about each other and good about each other, and that when they talk like about a failing relationship, that it's most of the time their fault and it's not their own fault, so it's like the other person's fault all the time. That they use either like being really like pathetic or being like great, like they advertise themselves all the time. That's one of the first thing you hear about them, like I was pretty great at that, or like, oh, I'm so bad at that. And they don't really genuinely ask for something, but they seem to get everything either way because they're pretty good at like advertising their needs and their needs getting met, but they don't really say, oh, can you please do that, or thank you. It's just like they're like, oh, I'm so bad at this video game and I'm hard stuck in this elo, and then the other guy says, okay, I can carry you. But it's not like you realize that a lot of things are being done for them even though they don't ask, because they're very good at advertising themselves.
Brilliant, Kevin. Yeah, I think you're good at this. I don't know exactly what this is, but I think you're incredibly insightful. I think with the right kind of support, you're gonna not only understand yourself way better, but I think you're gonna like get past all this crap. It may linger with you in some form, but I'm confident that with practice and effort, you will be able to control it as opposed to it being able to control you.
Thank you very much.
Good luck, my friend.
Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Have a good evening.
You too.
Thank you, Kevin.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Okay, now we really do have to go. So, who are we rating, chat, first of all? And then we'll do closing. Yeah, that was great.
You guys are
Raid
so
Kevin.
awesome. Raid Kevin.
Kevin's channel.
Do you need this computer?
Yes, I need this computer.
Sorry, chat. I wish I could hang with y'all.
Okay, do y'all want to raid Mizkif? We can raid Mizkif. Okay, I'm just making sure that they're live.
Is there somebody like a smaller streamer?
Sure. There are smaller streamers than Mizkif.
Yeah.
I'm sure that there must be.
Mitch.
We can raid Minx. Let's raid Minx. Okay. Send Minx some love. And we will see y'all when? I think we're streaming on Monday, right? Wait, no, today's Wednesday.
Yeah.
Friday.
We'll see you guys on Friday.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Us. Check out group coaching so you can do this with chat every week. It is so good.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Adios.